cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we dip our McNuggets in something other than honey. I'm one of your hosts, Bob, Mr. Downy Buns Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today, as always.
Hey, it's Henry Gilbert. I can't wait to watch Up All Night after this podcast.
Ooh, with Rhonda Shear or Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, one or the other. Up All Night.
A duet of pleasures. And today's episode is the Duckman episode, Cocktails for Four.
Duckman.
You heard the belch. It's all about Duckman because finally Bob's dream has come true, and my fans have failed me every miniseries vote by never voting for Duckman.
They won't do it. They refuse to.
So secretly, I am going to make Duckman happen over the next 50 years of this podcast. But yes, it's time to revisit Duckman. And you may remember back in 2017, we did a Duckman episode to align with the Simpsons timeline with when Duckman started. But now we are doing this full time. We're not doing it after a crappy job while we're half drunk, and we have a lot more time to dig into Duckman. So I'll be doing a full rehistory of Duckman, and we'll be talking about a whole different episode this time. And I can't wait to get into it because I love Duckman so much.
Bob's Duckman fandom dwarfs mine, though I also was a big Duckman fan when it was airing as new.
We're called Duck fans, Henry. We're called Duck fans.
I fell off the boat with it. I didn't really watch another episode of Duckman from between, I think, 1999 and 2017 when we rewatched it. But,
I've had many Duckman renaissances in my life. But let's talk about our history with Duckman. So, man, I was there. It was my moon landing when Duckman appeared on USA. And I just remember those Saturday nights vividly. It was a Saturday night show, and I was a preteen and eventually become a teen throughout Duckman's growth. I was growing too as a man. And so it would be my perfect Saturday night, friendless and alone, watching 8 to 10 p.m. Snick. 10:30 Weird Science Duckman, 11 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Then news, you just eat nachos or whatever, and then 11:30 Saturday Night Live. It's the perfect Saturday night for a bored, TV-addicted, friendless kid, and I was there. Thank you, cable television. You informed me so well. And I have vivid memories. Before Duckman aired, my uncle got me into a lot of weird stuff, sci-fi, comedy stuff, and he, for some reason, called me into the room because the Cable Ace Awards were on in 1994, and I figured it out. This was January of 1994, and Space Ghost was interviewing Duckman about his new show. Before Duckman came on the air. I can't find that clip for the life of me, but I know it exists because
no one archived the Cable Ace Awards.
No, but it happened then. And I will say, I didn't see most of Duckman's fourth season. There are 4 seasons because of how USA fucked with the schedule. So there was another Duckman renaissance in my life, and it was in the early 2000s. I believe it started in 2002 when it was The Critic, The Tick, South Park, and Duckman in a midnight to 2 a.m. block, and Duckman was always the last show. So I ended up watching a lot of the Duckman I hadn't seen in the early 2000s, and that's when I rediscovered Duckman, and then about 10 years later I bought all the DVDs again. Here we are 10 more years later doing a podcast. And I remember, if you go back to those Critic commentaries, Gene and Reese are like, The Critic is one of Comedy Central's highest rated shows, but it's still too expensive for them to make more.
Yeah, South Park was the biggest budget they would spend at that time on something animated, and that, was at a certain expense level that a Writers Guild show produced in full animation in the early days of digital animation, way more expensive than Comedy Central was going to spend, even no matter how big those reruns were. But yeah, that whole block was their answer to Adult Swim with their own reruns. But nothing new came of it. They didn't spend more money on things. I guess they did start spending more money on their own original animation to go with South Park.
Kid Notorious, Shorties Watching Shorties.
Drawn Together.
Yeah, that That was that era, yeah.
They
We will
spent
never do it unless you pay for it.
That money spent on Drawn Together could have easily paid for at least 5 episodes of Critic.
That was an expensive rough draft show, too.
Yeah.
Oh, Henry, what is your history with Duckman?
So definitely friendless and alone on Saturday nights, watching Duckman for sure. I think it was when you said Weird Science, that clicked for me of like, the combo of Weird Science into it. I mean, it was a horny evening of shows that really, I mean, that late night content on USA really was about showing Cinemax things without the nudity, like cutting right before a nipple was shown. And so Weird Science and Duckman were your lead up into watching like Bikini Car Wash 5 or whatever.
Or a terribly edited trauma movie.
Oh, yeah. Kabuki Samurai Cop or whatever. Yeah,
Nukem High.
Class Nukem High, yeah. So I watched Duckman a bit. It actually is one of the, here's a pro-dad story from Henry, a rare one. But we did have good times watching Duckman together. It actually turned into a thing for us.
Son, Duckman's on.
I know. It's crazy, but on a Saturday night when there was Duckman, we would watch it together. I don't know what my dad got out of it. I think definitely from a certain angle, there are bits in Duckman that if you're like an anti-PC right-wing dude, you're like, hey, they're making a good point about how feminists complain too much. But I was definitely laughing more at the transgressive things in it from the left side of things. And yeah, but also it was a funny cartoon show that I didn't realize was being made by the folks who had made The Simpsons that I had fallen in love with, or, some of them. So I watched it every night. But the 4th season, I did fall off just because it was impossible to find the new episodes and that was like, getting into 97, and I had kind of moved on, but I do remember watching that Comedy Central block from time to time and catching Duckmans that I had missed, including the series finale. That's how I finally saw the series finale was in the Comedy Central years. And but then after that, I fell off of it. I didn't watch it. I have, been on the record before of saying that I sometimes find the Klasky Chupo look, and especially Everett Peck through the Klasky Chupo lens, as ugly and like hurtful to my eyes. But my tastes have matured even more since I was saying that. I think it is a very interesting stylistic choice, and it's rewatching Duckman. It is, it takes me back both to the mid 90s, but also it has aged pretty well comparatively.
I think so. And you know what? I'm sure we complain a lot about Klasky Chupo in the past and how they sort of dominated the 90s and their look was everywhere. But I feel like every animated show, the template visually they start with is like Family Guy mixed with Bob's Burgers. And I'm so sick of seeing that. So coming back to Duckman, I'm like, they're people, they're animals. Everything is twisted and weird and ugly. And there's all these garish colors on the screen. It's just like, man, it's so visually compelling compared to a much blander, safer, primetime animated sitcom.
Yeah, even animated sitcoms that I think are really, well written, it feels like they're forced to settle for this very like utilitarian art style that doesn't give a ton of space for extra detail or a specific like stamp of look to it. It's why so many primetime animated series, stylistically, they're getting left behind by the more creator driven, kids cartoons that are usually built around one artist's style and it grows from there. So they all look unique instead of how the sameness of so many other shows that seem like they're just drawn a certain way to facilitate a script. Like the Duckman comes so much more out of the Matt Groening school of a singular vision that then you grow the tree out from there, as opposed to like, we love Bob's Burgers, but the look of the characters, it was created by a guy who's not an artist. Lauren Bouchard, great guy, very funny, I love all his stuff, but what he isn't is an artist, and so the art doesn't come first in the look there.
For sure, yeah, it's more about the dialogue. So I've got quite a compelling history of Duckman for you, so let's see how long this goes. But I will say up front, it's very interesting because it is the history of early primetime animation. There's a lot of crossover with The Simpsons. So So, you might have heard that Duckman started as a comic, and that is true. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of comic material, and double unfortunately, you can't really get it unless you look up illegal scans or buy the old comics, which are actually kind of affordable.
Yeah.
But
I've said before, eBay killed the collectible comic market because you see what people actually pay for it. You can't just go to a comic convention and a guy pulls out Wizard magazine and says, this is worth to $100, so you have to pay me $100.
The Spawn cards put me through college. So this comic was written and drawn by Everett Peck. We'll have a little bio on him later, but he first appeared in a September 1988 comic called Dark Horse Presents number 22. He would later appear in 2 more issues of Dark Horse Presents, and then Dark Horse eventually gave him a one-off in 1990, just his own single-issue comic. So Duckman is 3 short stories and 1 single-issue comic. That's all there is. Yeah,
man, that's very Dark Horse for them. That they were testing out a lot of stuff. Like Dark Horse they're not as big as, of the secondary market like Image, but they're pretty close behind and have a long history of supporting creator-owned works and giving them a platform in a way that, like, Marvel and DC didn't support, and they did it usually. It was seen as more of an artistically driven than Image Comics, which, while being creator-owned, was much more about the bombast of like, well, these are superheroes where you see boobs or whatever.
And they would often just give the weird stuff its own label to like distance itself from that content, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Duckman has the feel. I've looked at some of those pages, and I'm like, it feels almost too indie style for Dark Horse. Like, it feels much more like a zine or like a smaller press like Fantagraphics, or I'd say even below Fantagraphics in prestige of it all.
It feels like you'd see it on the counter of your comic book store and like it's stapled together and poorly Xerox. But so before this comic is even finished, before the one-off Duckman in 1990 is even finished, Everett Peck gets hired by Klasky Csupo to do some freelance work. And I don't think we really have to go into who Klasky Csupo is, but obviously they animated the first 3 seasons of The Simpsons. They animated the Simpsons shorts. They are famous for things like Rugrats and Duckman and All Real Monsters and the Wild Thornberrys and all that other stuff, and they dominated the 90s in animations.
Yeah. They were the first animation house for The Simpsons with the shorts, and that put them in a great position that they took advantage of being like, we're the Simpsons animators right at the start of the 90s animation boom. So I got to give it to Klasky and Csupo that they really made the most out of the cards they were dealt.
So Everett Peck had a very distinct and very strong art style. That's why Csupo hired him. And when he hired Peck, he's like, do you have any ideas for shows we could pitch? Because we all know that Klasky Csupo is having problems with Gracie Films. Nobody is really the bad guy here, but you hear the story from James L. Brooks because they won the fight.
Yeah. We went big into that in Some Enchanted Evening, how they were having trouble between them. And they, and also, like, it was smart on Gabor Csupo's part. You need to own what you're making. Like even if he was having a good relationship with Gracie, you only make so much money making stuff for other people instead of owning what you've got. So he made the right call there. I was just looking up on my phone. I wanted to mention the Everett Peck, going from indie comics to animation. That wasn't so much the thing back then.
That's true.
I wanted to mention I read this really good graphic novel by Natalie Norgatt called I Moved to Los Angeles to Work in Animation, and it is about, she was a Portland-based comic artist who was not making good money on that, and then she got into the storyboarding world of animation, and it's all about her trip to Burbank and getting into the world of animation. And it's really great, especially how it talks to the specific feeling it can be from being a comic artist who then has to translate those skills into the field of animation.
That's cool. I saw that on Twitter. I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really, I got it on Kindle. Very, very worth reading.
And it makes sense that Peck was getting into animation in the 90s because actually he got into animation before. We'll go over that later. But it makes sense that he wanted to directly work for Klasky Csupo because animation was just getting cool in 1990. And of course, Klasky Csupo at this point was developing Rugrats. It was going to go on the air in 1991. So like, we need more shows, because I'm sure Gabor wanted leverage over The Simpsons because he was tired of getting pushed around, tired of the fights with Gracie, and he wanted his own things. So Peck was not done with the one-off comic. Gabor loved it, and the comic already had like a very fleshed out cast of characters and premise. So he's like, we're going to develop this into a pilot, and I will help pay for it with my own money. So Gabor Csupo funds a 15-minute pilot.
Man, that's crazy, because the rule in Hollywood I'd always heard was you never spend your own money on a project. You're crazy if you spend your own money on it.
He believed that much in Duckman to basically pay for most of it himself. And Peck has no real credits at Klasky Csupo in that time period from like 1990 until Duckman going live, because he was developing Duckman. I will say he had one writing credit on a Rugrats because I think they needed to let him do something to justify his job. Like, all right, you've been working for Klasky Csupo for 2 years. Write one Rugrats. Try saying write one Rugrats. It's really hard.
Run Rugrats. If I was in that Klasky Csupo building, I probably would have been one of the people complaining like, that guy's been working on that pilot forever. It's never getting made. I've been busting my ass on these Rugrats.
Well, we all know Klasky Csupo has a lot of unsold pilots. There's
very much.
A famous reel online in their dark times. These are still the happy golden times for Klasky Csupo, though. So they eventually, after working with Peck, they make this 15-minute pilot. It is on the Duckman DVD sets. Unfortunately, it has commentary with Peck and Greg Berger. I say unfortunately because there is no audio for the pilot. I'm going to assume because whoever they had do the characters then and do the music then, they didn't want to pay them or couldn't pay them.
Oh, it must be that. Yeah, I would assume, even if it had the exact same voice cast, which I bet it didn't as broadcast, that's still a new thing you need to like get signatures for. And if I'm, CBS or whoever is, I believe it's CBS that owns them or puts out the DVDs, you're opening yourself up to a lawsuit if you have the original audio there.
And they're like, we didn't even want to do this Duckman thing. We own Duckman? Gross. But yeah, it's on the DVDs, and I watched it with the commentary, and it looks great. Duckman looks a tiny bit different, and in the pilot, it's something they changed in the series. He is a smoker. He's always smoking, and in the first episode of the series, it shows that he is trying to, get over smoking, and then it's never a factor. I think even USA was like, this funny animal can't be smoking on television in 1994.
Yeah, wanting to show a cartoon character smoking, it is a bad influence on kids, blah, blah, blah. I agree. Though it does take some character away from Duckman, but I think it does have more impact for kids to see a cartoon, even an adult late night cartoon, smoking than it is to see a human in live action smoking.
And Duckman can get drunk and occasionally has like a cigar or something, but it's never like constantly smoking. Like he's like Dale Gribble in this pilot.
I was rewatching that the Chris Elliott episode, and in that one, at times the Elliot character comes off as an old Duckman fan who's mad about the changes, he demands like, hey, why doesn't he smoke anymore? You should be smoking, Duckman.
So taking this pilot, they eventually team up with Paramount Television, and they pitched Duckman to both Fox and USA around the time of The Simpsons second season. So around like 91, they pitched Duckman. So Fox offered them a 2-script deal. We'll pay you to write 2 scripts, and we'll see how that goes. But USA offered them 13 episodes on the air, and they're like, well, we're doing that. We're going to go there. Yeah.
Boom. Yeah, that is so smart. You stick with cable. You're a bigger fish in a smaller pond, instead of being like one of every Simpsons alike show in the during second season of Simpsons was canceled in 3 episodes. Like none of them got to air. If Duckman even got to animate, at least the Duckman as we know it on USA, absolutely no way it would air more than 5 episodes.
Never. Not on Fox. And I don't really have to go over this, but the context of cable TV in the early 90s is this. Cable TV was sucky. Cable TV was a warehouse of reruns and cheap programming. So in these early times, networks wanted to buy the weirdest, most bizarre thing to get you to stop changing channels. This is where things like Space Ghost Coast to Coast and Mystery Science Theater came from, and also Duckman. Cable TV was a wasteland of reruns, but if you saw this crazy yellow duck smoking and drinking on TV, you would stop and watch this program, and that's why they bought Duckman.
Yeah, it's in the Wild West days there of cable cable, you could take bigger swings on weirder stuff. The more the market expanded for cable, the less they wanted weird stuff, and the more they wanted prestige reruns or fancy shows that win Emmys.
Yeah, exactly. And the story of Duckman is a story of like all of our favorite weird cable shows, where by the late 90s, the networks are like, we don't need you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be weird anymore.
Yeah, we used you like Dr. Katz. We're like, you filled some time then, but we got South Park now. We got the real show.
USA famously just a warehouse of Wings reruns.
Oh God,
and Duckman references that a lot.
I love that. They even call in a favor and do an actual scene of Wings. They filmed Steven Weber on the set of Wings doing a dream sequence, which is crazy.
So Duckman was an expensive show for the USA. So around the time it was being made, it cost around $600,000 per episode, and The Simpsons was about $1 million per episode. So yeah, those are the differences.
$600K for an episode is not cheap by USA standards. I would bet they spent less on a live-action episode of Weird Science.
Oh, yeah. Like, what did a silk stockings cost them?
And they also had, WWF on there, too. It was big for USA. And that, they were doing it a loss at times because Vince McMahon just wanted to be on television. That is what made him money. So it would be a while before USA paid big money to get pro wrestling on there.
I saw that WWF Raw started in '93 on USA, so it seems like they were trying to, pick up a lot of big brands and weird stuff to get people to be attracted to their network. Because what is USA's identity? Like, what does USA even mean?
Yeah, it goes in and out. I always associate it with wrestling, though there was about a 5-year period where they had no wrestling on it. But I also think of Duckman, and then I think of the 2000 to 2012 era of just Monk and Psych and all those shows that feel like they would have been on the air on NBC in the 90s, but are being made in the 2000s. And Monk's a good show. I like that show. Apparently Psych has new episodes.
That's weird.
I didn't know this.
That's so weird. I mean, bring back Duckman. I'm going to keep saying that in this podcast. But it was much more expensive than USA's normal programming, and the show would pull in around 2 million viewers a night, which any show would kill for today on cable, but not a big hit for USA.
Yeah. That's knowing how many episodes they made of this, I kind of am shocked it got that much with those kind of ratings.
Yeah, that's something that still takes me aback, even though I've seen them all. Duckman has almost as many episodes as the original Fox run of Futurama. So Futurama is 72 and Duckman is 70. Like, nobody really, I'm sure most people think Duckman was like a one-season show that was just weird, but no, there were 70 episodes of this show, and it ran from March 5th, 1994 to September 6th, 1997. A little over 3 years, and you got all your Duckman in.
That's my 15th birthday when the series ended. Yeah.
What a birthday you had by missing the Duckman finale.
I was probably staying up all night, probably watching anime with friends. So that's why I missed the finale. But they didn't advertise that it was going to be the final episode. When I finally saw it in Comedy Central reruns, it was one of those realizations I have every now and then with an unpopular show that gets to do a finale, and where 5 minutes in I go wait, they're talking like this is the last episode. They would never say this in a normal episode.
Things start to feel wrong.
Yeah, on the home movies finale, there's halfway through I'm like, this is a final episode speech. Wait a minute. No.
And especially before you could just go online and see this is the last one. Like watching Doug graduate 6th grade, I was like, wait, no, there's no more Doug.
That's right. Yeah. The pain of a finale that you don't see coming. We need to be, when Adventure Time ended, when Steven Universe ended, months of warnings to viewers look, this is the start of the end. Let's all just relax, everybody. They did not take that kind of care in our youths.
So it was a critical darling. Critics loved Duckman because Duckman is a very good and funny show with good social satire. But USA didn't care for Duckman very much and didn't know what to do with it. But for them, it was a prestige show, and they were lucky enough to sign on Jason Alexander before Seinfeld was huge. It was big in 1992, 93. It was huge by 95. It was so I looked up the ratings for Seinfeld. When Jason Alexander signed on to Duckman, Seinfeld was getting 15 million per episode. Not bad, but by 95 it was like 30 million per episode.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the explosion.
I think, for Seinfeld, the thing that made me a mega viewer of it, and I think really expanded it, was that the rerun started in syndication while like season 7 or 6 was airing. And so when people could watch the reruns, they could appreciate the world building and style of Seinfeld more. It was like a perpetual motion machine, just going faster and faster. And yeah, they were so lucky to get Jason Alexander. I feel like, he's brilliant in Seinfeld, but I wonder if this was like his outlet of like, well, this is my show now. I'm not like the fat bald loser on this show.
Jason Alexander loves Duckman. He loved doing it, even though it probably destroyed his voice. And if you love George on Seinfeld, this is like George times 100, like more craven and cowardly and selfish character than George could ever be.
I think what hurts George when you look back on it is just that now we've had 20 years of Larry David playing himself in things.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, well, he was doing a Larry David impression. It kind of weakens. George is the funniest character on the show.
He's the star of the show. They should call it George Field.
People aren't sharing memes of like Jerry looking silly or whatever, but they are sharing just that screenshot of him holding that bat and getting ready to swing,
or just him pulling out the golf ball. That's all you need.
God,
you don't even need the wind up to that. But yeah, so they had the must see TV energy of Jason Alexander. It was almost like watching Seinfeld, but he was a duck and he was also George. So this is all conjecture on my part because there's not a lot of information on this. But I was looking at the season orders. Season 1 is 13 episodes. Pretty average for a show you're taking a risk on. And then season 2 is 9 episodes. And that strikes me as like, it's not officially a second season. They got a back 9 a year later. And I think you and I learned the term back 9 from Mystery Science Theater.
100%.
When they were always like on the bubble, like, oh, will they get the back 9 in season 9?
I learned the back 9 as constantly updating the MST3K Info Club to see if season 9 would get the back 9, and it did not.
No, and I remember Arrested Development was one of those similar deals where they got a back 9 in season 1.
Oh, yeah, and in the third season, they have, or second season, they have a joke about how they were going to build a certain number of houses, but then it was like 5 fewer houses, and that was them saying like, they cut our episode order like that. You're right. I think that season 2 really is just them ordering the rest of season 1 based on ratings.
And one of those 9 episodes is a clip show, but it's a funny, like Simpsons cynical clip show in that Duckman is being tortured by clips. Ben Stiller is the clip shower in that episode.
He's great in that. He even calls out like, oh, this is even worse than the first season that kept airing over and over again.
Yeah, in fact, I have a promo I'm going to put into this podcast where it's like Duckman in a pool is like, oh, y'all love my show, but you're sick of seeing the same episodes. We'll blame the USA executive who only ordered 13. And then like, new episodes are coming of Duckman very soon. Yeah,
that was great. I love that.
So after this like 22 episodes in seasons 1 and 2, then there are like 2 giant orders in 3 and 4. And my theory was USA was like, do we want Duckman? It's kind of weird and expensive, but it's our one prestige thing. And then they were like, you know what? Even if we don't like Duckman, we can syndicate Duckman or get some of the syndication money if we make it to 100. Let's just go. Mm-hmm. And then by the time they hit 70, they're like, I don't want to do Duckman anymore.
Do we want to pay for another 30 Duckmans?
They just needed 30 more Duckmen.
Well, I think, too, by 97, maybe they were less interested in being friends with Jason Alexander. And plus, like, Gabor was selling everything to Nickelodeon. Like, USA didn't buy their other stuff. So maybe they also weren't feeling as much making deals with him since he was working with Viacom on the Nickelodeon stuff.
And we said it before, but, like, after the third season, USA was really fucking around with their time slot. I remember thinking Duckman was just gone because there was no information about it. And it was like 3 a.m. on a weeknight in the summer, and I saw a new Duckman. I was like, what is happening? What is going on? Did I dream this?
You had turned off Final Fantasy VIII, and then at 3 a.m. you're like, wait, what's this?
This can't be happening. But yes, so we talked about the Comedy Central animation block that sort of repopularized Duckman. And I will say, like, there's some some weird retooling in the series that doesn't feel like a network mandate. I don't know what's going on because we haven't talked about the characters yet, but in the fourth season, the character of Bernice is kind of replaced by another nicer character named Beverly.
Yeah.
But they're both voiced by the same woman, and Beverly has like equal time with Bernice. So I don't know if the network was like, Bernice is too mean, or we need another different Duckman woman dynamic, or maybe the writers just wanted to change. But that is a big change halfway through the fourth season. It feels like it would be more of a network thing if it was the fourth season premiere episode, like Here's Beverly. But because it happened so late, it feels like, let's try a new character with Duckman.
Yeah, the moments like that is the most extreme, but it feels more like a reshuffling of the deck and wanting to change up the dynamic because maybe they were getting tired of like, okay, how does Bernice beat up Duckman in this sequence here? Like, though seeing her in the episode we're doing today, she's so great. You just got to write her well.
She is like one of the best female animated characters on TV. She's like the anti-Marge.
But Beverly, I mean, I like that she is a continued torturing of Duckman. It's something they lose a little bit sometimes, but the extra pain of Bernice's existence is that she looks and sounds just like his beloved dead wife. And so see a woman who is her clone torturing you at all times only makes you more miserable. But then he finds a new hell of meeting a nice woman who looks and sounds just like his dead wife, but she feels no romantic interest towards him at all. And in fact, he has to watch her fall in love with his sidekick, who he often feels lesser than as well.
Yeah, and I watched a few Beverly episodes and I like them, and it feels like a new dynamic because I guess the premise for her is like, what if a normal person had to interact with Duckman, had to just kind of be polite to him by rolling their eyes. Bernice will just punch him or throw him or call him like a urinal cake or whatever. But Beverly's just like, oh, all right, Duckman, whatever. So yeah, the ending of the series, which happened in 97, is a crazy cliffhanger. I watched it again yesterday with 4 weddings. It's called 4 Weddings Inconceivable because Duckman marries a character we'll meet in this episode.
Yes, who only appears in this episode and the finale.
That's it. Bernice will marry King Chicken. Cornfed will marry Beverly. And then Ben Stein, who is a character in the show named Ben Stein, gets married in the first act.
It was back when Ben Stein was good.
He was like, oh, the funny voice, clear eyes.
Yeah, exactly. He's in their longest weekend episode, the one that's a war one. I love Ben Stein is one of the folks in his neighborhood, and he constantly says like, as a psychiatrist, until Bernice like just glares at him. He's like, as an observer, I think.
Oh, man, Ben Stein, why'd you have to open your mouth? I knew you were conservative, but then you made the movie that was like, when you teach evolution, you're actually a Nazi.
Yep.
And that was just like, man, I just want to laugh at your voice. You're so boring.
We all thought it was cute that he had been a Nixon scriptwriter, but then you dig just a little farther, and then you're like, oh, you're awful.
So yeah, there was a crazy cliffhanger in which a complete screw you to the fans, but Beatrice, Duckman's dead wife, who we accidentally killed, was never dead, and Cornfed knew. Cornfed is Duckman's sidekick, and that is the cliffhanger to be continued ? No continuation of Duckman.
They knew they would never come back to it. It's made, when I saw online like fan series say this or whatever, I'm like, the showrunner wanted to fuck with you at the end. They just wanted to they're like, our show got canceled, so here's a 22-minute like FU of pretending that we're going to tie everything up perfectly, and then we will completely upend the core concept of the series.
I personally think it was them holding a fan gun to USA's temple saying, you tell that network you want to know what happens.
That's
you tell
true.
them. I think it's more like that, though. This was a very screw you show. And a lot of the jokes are, you're a loser if you're watching this on Saturday night. What's your problem? You're watching USA on Saturday night. You're a total loser.
They had great episodes where they would joke about how they didn't try, or they're just like, there's in the Road to Dendron episode, there's a line where Duckman says, "I feel worse than a plumber with a mouthful of Mentos at Madonna's house." And then Cornfed like thinks for a second and goes like, "You don't even care if these make sense anymore, do you?" And he says, "Nah, not since the second season."
That's right. That was a great line. I did really enjoy that. But my question up here is more Duckman question mark. I think we are closer to a Duckman revival than ever, which means not very close. But we are now wanting to revisit the 90s again as the world slips further and further into hell.
Yep.
And Jason Alexander, I brought it up before, but I just heard him on a somewhat recent episode of the Gilbert Gottfried podcast, which is great. And they talked to him about Duckman.
He's a cast member on Duckman, isn't he?
That's
like
right. He plays
guy.
Art DeSalvo.
That's right.
Who looks a lot like Gilbert Gottfried. But yeah, they ask him about Duckman. You could tell he never gets to talk about it. And Jason says, "We've been trying to bring it back. We've been." So he wants to do it.
I mean, Gobbler can't get meetings on Duckman without Jason. Jason needs to be in the meetings with him to be like, "You also get me. I will be here. You don't have to recast Duckman. I'm in this for the long haul." So, I mean, he got like full soliloquies in the show, like monologues he got to give that he never gets that kind of platform anywhere else. Like, what else does he just appears in like crappy things mostly. He doesn't really get to make much stuff. So
this is the true platform for the Tony Award winning actor Jason Alexander.
He is also, he looks a certain way in Hollywood that makes you a character actor for life. So being the lead in something is not an option he often gets, even with his kind of celebrity. So I'm glad he's pushing for it. And yeah, I think we said this on whenever we do a 90s throwback, it's like, well, anything that was even heard of in the 90s is more famous than a new thing now. And also, like, no streaming service, HBO Max, CBS All Access, Disney Plus, they don't want to invest in new IP. They want to exploit their old IP. And I guess it's just Duckman's misfortune that they're owned by a company that doesn't have their own dedicated streaming platform like HBO Max or Disney Plus yet.
Let's get Picard season 2 and Duckman together on CBS All Access. A Duckman reboot
with a great cross promotion between them. That's that. I meant to say that when I was talking about Raw, that they did multiple cross promotions with Duckman on WWE.
We've got Cornfed on the line now. You're on the new series Duckman. That's right.
What would Cornfed say about Damien Demento here?
Those are all online. Check out Cornfed talking to who?
I believe it's Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler.
Okay, I thought so.
I mean, the classic photo of Jerry the King Lawler wearing a Duckman shirt is out there.
What I would give for that Duckman shirt. Let's talk about awards. So, nominated for the Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program in 94, 96, and 97. Lost every time. Lost in 1994 to The Roman City, a very boring PBS thing about life in Rome that no one remembers.
Boo.
And I don't even think The Simpsons was nominated in 94 or 95.
Man, that's bullshit.
It's very weird.
Jeez.
So Pinky and the Brain Christmas, 96, that's what won. And then Homer's Phobia won in 97.
Oh, poor Duckman. Man, they deserve to beat Rome. I don't know about that. Pinky and the Brain Christmas special is pretty great too. And
but it did beat a Simpsons, right?
Yeah, that did defeat a Simpsons. And I mean, we love Homer's Phobia, so it's hard to pick. But at the very least, it should have beat that Rome thing. But maybe that was them trying to show like animation is actually smart and teaches things. It's not just dirty picture.
That's why it's on YouTube for free and nobody wants to see it. So yeah, it did win a 1996 Cable Ace Award, but we all know those things are rigged, right?
Yeah. That's that Mission Hill for Real World. They do that Cable Ace Award joke, and then a character has to say, like, the Cable Ace Awards don't exist anymore. Oh, okay, you're right. Yeah, like that felt like Bill and Josh saying out loud, quit doing Cable Ace Award jokes. They don't even exist.
So we mentioned him up front. Let's talk about Everett Peck. He is a fascinating man who grew up fascinated with cartoons and comic art and eventually got a degree in illustration from Long Beach University. And after that, in the 70s and 80s, he lived in New York as a magazine illustrator, working for prestigious publications like Playboy and Rolling Stone and The New Yorker. Like, he's got a very, like, magazine illustrator style.
Yeah. I can just see his style, like, at the start of a New Yorker piece about, like, taking subways somewhere like at the Met this month, and that's a long-nosed weird guy with flushed cheeks in the picture.
A very Duckman style character. And he worked in marketing for things like Honda and Nike, designing ads for them. So doing a lot of work as a commercial illustrator, but he eventually got into animation doing character designs for the real Ghostbusters. So
wow, right.
Who is a more perfect guy for that, for those ghoulish designs for all those monsters, right?
Yeah. Wow. Yes, that's right. I forgot he was among the list of guys we talked about in our Ghostbusters episode. And it's so crazy to think of this great art design by Everett Peck put into kind of pedestrian storyboards that are then animated by the best animators in Japan.
It's pretty crazy, and he's the perfect guy for that. So like all of his animation work is just design work. He was not like a layout guy or a storyboard guy or an animator. So of course he was at Klasky Chupo, did all of Duckman, worked on Duckman for 4 years, and we have some more stuff from him. Character designer for Extreme Ghostbusters and the Jumanji series that Klasky Chupo would later do.
Oh man, you watch 1 second of Jumanji and it's a Duckman show.
It takes place in the Duckiverse, that show.
Yeah. Extreme Ghostbusters, it's kind of in between. It's Extreme Ghostbusters is not a bad show. I actually watched a few, and the art design is kind of between Duckman and classic Ghostbusters art design. Like it's a little weirder, but fits in the classic real Ghostbusters averse.
He also worked on The Critic as a visual designer, and he had to design characters like Vlada.
Yeah.
Like a freakish Peck design that's hard to move around.
Vlada looks incredibly out of place in that show, but he's a funny character as far as, outdated foreigner man characters go. Though it's even funnier to think he's drawing that character that I think at least a little bit is mocking Gabor Chupo.
We all love Gabor. And also he was an executive design consultant on the Godzilla series and Men in Black, the series.
Totally see that.
And he created another show that nobody saw for kids called Squirrel Boy that also looks a lot like Duckman. It was on Cartoon Network in a very weird period for them. So
yeah, they were trying out a lot of stuff and then wouldn't air it or air a tiny bit of it. It's that was the live action years of Cartoon Network that pushed me away until finally enough of my coworkers at a website told me, like, seriously, Adventure Time is a good show, and you definitely should be watching this new thing called Steven Universe.
So, who are the showrunners behind Duckman? Who are the Al Jean and Mike Reese of Duckman? And I kind of want to interview these guys because I don't think they talk about Duckman a lot. Jeff Reno and Ron Osborne are the two basically executive producers and the guy they brought on to develop the show. So I found a great interview about their career, and because they were on the show Moonlighting, I really explored the moonlighting community and found a lot of interviews with them, like old fanzines with them and things like that. So
didn't realize the moonlighting people were so hardcore.
How familiar are you with Moonlighting, Henry?
Oh, I mean, it's known as the will they won't they kind of show, and that was then it's the story you tell of it was then ruined by having them come together in a season, and then plus the one lead in it got way more popular than the other one. Yeah,
Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd in a romantic comedy, detective, hour-long comedy drama. I think I said comedy twice, but it was sort of, this is a weird analogy, but I will say it was sort of the Ally McBeal of its time. It burned red hot for 3 years, and then no one ever talked about it again.
Yeah. I also remember hearing about it recently because I was watching Community again and some reruns of it, and on one commentary they bring up how there's an episode of Moonlighting where Bruce Willis plays his own son's fetus in an episode that ends with that child being miscarried at the end of it. And when they're explaining that on the commentary, they're like, how were we as Community ever judged as too weird for television?
Yes, and Moonlighting being so weird is why Duckman is so weird. We'll get into that very soon. So these two guys, Jeff Reno and Ron Osborne, got into the business writing a spec script for MASH that was never made, but they wrote a spec script. And using that, they got onto Mork and Mindy in 1981.
Whoa.
Yes.
They are old timers then.
They are. And here is one of them talking about Mork and Mindy. I don't know who said this quote because it was written poorly, this this fanzine. But
these moonlighting fans need to go to journalism school.
Either Reno or Osborne said about Mork and Mindy, we work 6 and 7 days a week, 12-hour days, sometimes doing rewrites between the afternoon and evenings, filming on Friday. I remember getting up in the morning, having breakfast, and then losing it because there was so much pressure. So Mork and Mindy was grinding people into dust.
Man, I didn't know that. All you see are just the silly scenes of Robin Williams having fun. You don't. I never considered that it was that rough of a time.
So yeah, they met in a writing class, and the teacher was like, "You guys are funny, but you should become writing partners because you're more likely to get hired." Basically, producers want to hire writing partners. It's 2 jokes for the price of 1.
Yeah, and you split the paycheck as well, so it doesn't add to your head count. I mean, I'd heard that about in writers' rooms now. They're like, "Oh, we need women. Can we get a women writing team so then we get 2 more women for the price of 1?" And it makes us look more progressive while saving money.
What a deal. So yeah, they would write for other 80s sitcoms like Too Close for Comfort, Silver Spoons, Goodnight Beantown, and Night Court. And you get the feeling like these guys feel a lot like David Merkin. They're like the same age, the same generation of TV writers. They grew to hate sitcoms, and what they would do next would try to like ruin and subvert every sitcom trope you've ever seen. And Duckman and Moonlighting are both shows like that.
Wow, that's yeah, you're so right. The Merkin, we talked about, I've said this many times, that he's a guy who is great at writing sitcoms and understands the form incredibly well, but also hates them so very much. And that comes through in very well done sitcoms that also are mad at you for watching it.
So while they were on Night Court, Reno and Osborne were developing an hour-long romantic comedy detective show, Pilot, that was never made. This was not Moonlighting, by the way. But their agent used that script that they were developing to get them onto Moonlighting, which had just started. Like, I think it had aired a few episodes before they joined the crew. Night Court wanted them to stay, but they were like, we are so over sitcoms. And also, they had just written a Cheers spec script that one of the EPs said, "This is the best spec script we've ever gotten. We need you on Cheers right now." And they're like, we're going to take a risk on Moonlighting instead.
Wow,
so
man, that Cheers thing, that's money forever. Like
getting on Cheers in 85, you had like 7 more years of Cheers left.
And if you're getting residuals from Cheers to this day, you're probably making a lot more money than in your old age than you are on Moonlighting reruns right now. But I mean, Moonlighting too, it was a single camera show in a time when like everything was multi-camera and comedy. Yeah,
a comedy without a laugh track too, and very experimental. So I picked out one of the episodes these guys wrote as the most infamous Moonlighting because it was the most expensive hour of TV drama ever filmed at the time, with a $7 million budget for one episode.
Whoa.
Yeah. The episode is called Atomic Shakespeare, written by Reno and Osborne. Here's the plot from Wikipedia, or an article about it. So this Moonlighting meets Shakespeare portion of the episode is framed by an intro in which a young boy prepares to watch Moonlighting, but then his mom insists he do his homework, studying for a test on the taming of the shrew instead. He reluctantly agrees, only to reimagine the Bard's classic through the lens of the gang at the Blue Moon Detective Agency. And yes, the entire script is in iambic pentameter.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow, that really is challenging.
And if you look at how at times ambitious Duckman is with its storytelling and premises, you can definitely see how they wanted to do things that were never done on TV.
Yeah, no, that feels like a Duckman script idea as well. Like there's multiple episodes of Duckman framed as, well, you're watching the Duckman show, and but this is a different type of episode.
Duckman did so many episodes where they changed the premise to make a theme. Like there's just a Star Trek episode of Duckman. They like Futurama has their Star Trek episode, but they set it up. It just starts like this is just Star Trek. There's a noir episode in black and white. There's like a Dostoevsky novel version of Duckman on the TV show. It's so interesting.
In the later seasons too, they just have whole episodes that are giant dream sequences, or just they break reality to such an extreme that it has to be like a fairy tale told to a little boy in the future, because otherwise it would make no sense how America was split into gendered halves as well. They even, I like in that one they have to say like maybe it was that they were all so tired of each other. Maybe it was bad writing, but who knows? They split up.
Making fun of your own writing is always fun. So before Duckman, or right before Duckman, post Moonlighting, they co-wrote the 1994 comedy The Radioland Murders. So that was one of the like 5 George Lucas ideas he's ever had. Story by him.
Yeah, is that a Brian Benben? Is that? Or I'm just imagining a Brian Benben type.
If he was in a movie, it was only one movie. We lost Brian Benben.
I always forget that's everybody talks about Howard the Duck, but they never talk about Radioland Murders when they mentioned George Lucas fumbles.
So post Duckman, Reno and Osborne, they were co-writers of Meet Joe Black.
Wow.
And so they executive produced that Jeremy Piven show Cupid, which lasted a season.
Right.
And believe it or not, this is so funny. They were consulting producers on the first season of The West Wing.
What?
So all those Sorkin-y speeches, they were also powered by Duckman fuel.
Wow, I did not know that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense though for the Sorkin-y world, and also they're definitely they get political in this show in Duckman. For
Definitely.
Sure.
And they didn't do a lot after that. After like the early 2000s, I think they just kind of slowed down, and they're consultants and readers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they produced most recently in 2015, or they were consulting producers rather, of the Beauty and the Beast series for the CW, which I've never seen.
Oh, right, yeah.
But I haven't seen any CW show, by the way.
I think that's the show where the Beast is like a guy covered in scars and stuff. I think he's not an actual like animal man.
Let's go over the voice cast before we go on to the episode. So,
oh boy,
a little guy named J. Allen Greenspan as Duckman, or Jason Alexander.
Oh, I didn't know that. I should have figured he had a stage name. I mean,
he is a Jewish man. Alexander is not a Jewish last name.
Sorry,
J. Scott Greenspan.
The cast of Seinfeld is Jewish? What?
Yes, could you believe it? All of them? The show wouldn't let you know that. So again, he is the star of the show, and it's the Jason Alexander show. And he's from the first episode, he gets it. He's like on, and then it's just he rules for the entire thing.
Yeah, it's the perfect fit for him. I think the writers understood his voice so well and could write for it, and he got the feel of the show instantly, and they just met in between. Like this show without Jason Alexander, like I think it's half as good almost.
If you want that, play the point and click adventure game, which has every actor but Jason Alexander, and the guy they got is like 92% of the way there, but it's just off enough where you're like, that's not Duckman.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm watching clips from it. I never played the game. Watching clips from it, I'm like, oh man, it just doesn't feel. He says so many funny asides, but it just doesn't feel the same without him.
It only came out in Europe, so I had to pirate it to play it like 10 years ago. But it's a fun adventure game, but no Jason Alexander. Nancy Travis as Aunt Bernice, man, she rules as this, and then she has to play like 2 other characters eventually. So honestly, this is what I know her from. Apparently, her breakout role was in 3 Men and a Baby, but this is her first regular TV role as a series regular.
They got her right before she hit it big, though, right? Or I mean, like, sitcom wife big, I guess.
Yes, she would go on to become sitcom wife in things like Almost Perfect and Becker. And I've never seen the show, but for the past 10 years, she has been Tim Allen's wife on Last Man Standing. So it's as if Bernice married Duckman. That's the show you get.
Man, that's that's what I love, that she has to play all these sitcom wives who have to go like, oh, you, or just she has to have a little bite to her, but she plays the ultimate refutation of sitcom wife in Bernice, who's just like, I'm not your wife, I hate you, and if I could kill you, I would.
Complete like ball breaker, like
yes, yeah,
physical and emotionally abusive to Duckman.
In the episode where they go to a Native American casino and then a psychologist talks to all of them, the psychologist says to Bernice, like, and you get off and you enjoy emasculating the men in your life, and she like cracks her knuckles and goes like, not just men.
That's awesome. Yes, I love Bernice. She's a fun character. And
that Last Man Standing show, I forgot, we're recording these out of order, but listeners in the future will hear me talk about the Avengers show And one of the recurring voice actors in it who played the character Kang, he is the black guy on Last Man Standing, his black friend.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, what's his politics like, I wonder? And the first result was him appearing on the 700 Club about his faith and trying to work that in the godless world of Hollywood.
Ooh, you don't want that. Yeah,
Yep.
so Nancy Travis plays Bernice. Bernice is Duckman's sister-in-law, and Bernice is basically raising his kids because Duckman accidentally killed his sister.
Yeah, and he is...
her sister, sorry.
It's hard not to agree with Bernice at 99% of the time when she's like, you are a monster and refuse to raise your children. And he's like, yeah, I mean, she's right. That's it.
It is a very 90s show where it's like, well, both sides are on because Bernice is like an ultra competent, like super feminist, but also she is desperately man hungry and wants to have children so bad.
In some of my research, I saw a Duckman fan point out that statistically speaking in the show, Duckman has sex far more often than Bernice does. Like Bernice never gets laid except with the villain of this show.
We will hear Bernice have sex later in this podcast. So Dweezil Zappa as Ajax, obviously the child of Frank Zappa, one of several. And Gabor Chupo and Frank Zappa were friends when he was alive. Apparently Frank Zappa wrote the theme song, and also they used music from his catalog in the first season, and like no TV show ever got the rights to that.
That's right. Yeah. That was a big deal. I mean, Frank Zappa, I've told stories before that he was a bit of a prickly pear.
I don't get Frank Zappa. I think I have to be a boomer and rolling joints on like a record to get it. I don't really understand that.
I think, his kind of music speaks to fighting against a society that we didn't live in. Like, we've lived in a different one, and so his kind of rebellion doesn't speak to us. And then his songs, like, they are in most cases trying to not be musical and like fight against people enjoying them. But Dweezil is a great voice actor on this show.
Yeah, I love Ajax. He is a perfect Ralph Wiggum character, not a ripoff of Ralph Wiggum. They became the same character around the same time, just like the non sequitur touched in the head machine.
Yeah, he so often will eat disgusting things or not understand things, or a couple of my favorite jokes of him is where he thought karaoke was making the sounds of the musical instruments, and then it's revealed that, like, no, he can make those sounds with his voice. Or in the episode about finding the cure for cancer in Duckman's brain, the doctor asked him, like, did the umbilical cord go around your neck when you were a kid? He's like, no, but it's been a problem lately. And he like undoes his shirt and umbilical cord flops out.
So these ducks don't come from eggs, I guess. Raises all sorts of questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dweezil Zappa.
That's like asking about Duckman's ears. How does glasses stay up without his ears?
That's true. And his eyes are part of them. It's very weird. So we also have Dana Hill as Charles. So she had the perfect scratchy little boy voice for her whole life, which is why she was Max in Goof Troop.
Yeah.
But she actually died during the show.
Very sad.
Yeah, like at 32.
Yeah, I didn't realize her, early death happened until looking up as a younger man. Hey, why does this character's voice change in the series?
Yeah, I think that one of the episodes ends with like a picture of her like dedicated to Dana Hill.
Right.
So yeah, she died in '96, replaced by Pat Music, who played Fluffy in Uranus. And so Dana Hill is one of like just a few of the regular voice actors. Like the principal characters are not traditional voice actors.
Yeah. She's more of the Cree Summer variety of just like a lifer in voice acting who you hear in everything. Or did hear in everything.
E.G. Daly is Mambo. E.G. Daly, Dottie from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and also Tommy from Rugrats. And Charles and Mambo are Duckman's two-headed nerd son, kind of like a Lisa Simpson, but with like open contempt for Duckman. Yeah. Like Lisa will roll her eyes at Homer, but they are just like openly hostile in the same way Bernice is to Duckman.
They truly hate and disrespect him. Like they're the ones who are used for examples of like Bernice is a bad influence on them and makes them disrespect their father more. I mean, though Ajax loves his dad unconditionally, despite how much Duckman like openly hates him, or at least like is uninterested in his life in all ways.
And we also have Greg Berger as Cornfed, another a great voice actor with a resume dating back to the early 80s. Cornfed, of course, is Duckman's hyper-competent employee assistant, and he is doing a Jack web impression from Dragnet, and he can talk so fast in this voice. These scripts are so packed, and Jason Alexander in an interview was saying, like, traditionally, like, a script is like a page a minute. The Duckman scripts are between 60 and 80 pages.
Wow.
Every character talks in these long speeches that are all rapid fire. It's great.
It's amazing some of the stuff Berger has to say almost as many monologues as Alexander has to in the show, and he has to do them while maintaining a completely quiet character who has to also talk very quickly and say, Duckman, did you know that you were doing this? And statistically speaking, blah, blah, blah. Like all that stuff so good with him. He got in that Vietnam episode where they go back to Vietnam, he gives this entire speech about like trying to reconcile what we did to Vietnam with what he went through there as a soldier, and it's this really heartfelt speech going on as explosions are happening everywhere.
And of course, he is a pig.
Yes,
and my last thing is there were so many guests on Duckman, a crazy amount of guests on Duckman, from voice actors to superstars to just weirdos like Bob Guccione.
Yeah. Do you think that Jason Alexander was the guest star magnet that he could talk to other famous people and be like, hey, come on my show. You want to be friends with the Seinfeld guy, right? And so like they have so many guest stars, and including ones who come back more than once, that really impresses me.
I think also Duckman was known as like a cool show, like maybe even more. I mean, it is edgier than The Simpsons. It was more risque than The Simpsons. So like, oh, this is a cool thing for me to be on. My kids will like this, or my friends will think it's neat that I was on this. So yeah, like Ben Stiller was on it, and people like, well, of course, Dan Castellaneta. Homer is on Duckman.
Homer for real appears in an episode of Duckman. It's insane that we're able to do that. That feels like entirely Matt Groening letting that happen, because I cannot see James L. Brooks agreeing to let Gabor Chupo and have that clip.
Yeah, so like Ice-T, Lisa Kudrow, Dennis Leary, Heather Locklear, Bernie Mac, like Dom DeLuise. I'm just looking. There's like a list of like 100 Duckman guest roles. Carol Burnett.
Brandon Fraser was in a really great episode as this Hollywood executive in one I just watched. Yeah.
Coolio, and of course the villain of Duckman, who gets about 10 episodes, King Chicken, Tim Curry.
The greatest.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in rare form in this episode. But yeah, the acting, God, so many great voices on it. More as many famous people as Simpsons had, maybe even more so at that time, because they weren't stunt casting as much on The Simpsons. But yeah, the Lisa Kudrow one, I remember the title of it is The One with Lisa Kudrow in it.
And that's the one where Ajax gets abducted by aliens.
Oh, right.
But it's completely masked by the title.
That's right. I forgot that alien abduction. That was such a good episode. Every time you explain a premise to me, I'm like, oh, yeah.
And it also had like Katie Seagal in her first voice acting role. She played Duckman's mom reincarnated as a germ.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow. I totally forgot.
Way before she was Leela. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this very comprehensive Duckman history. When we come back, we'll be talking about the episode Cocktails for Four. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the break for the What a Cartoon episode all about Duckman. I have one question for you. What the hell are you listening to? Oh, wait, you're listening to What a Cartoon. Hello, of course, I'm Bob Mackey, one of your hosts for this podcast, who is here with me today for this ad.
Hey, it's Henry. I'm also known as Dick Man, Private Duck.
It's true, and yes, thank you for listening to this break. As always, we are here to tell you about the Patreon, how you can support the podcast. So if you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you will get all of these podcasts 1 week at a time and ad free, and also access to all of our podcasts behind the paywall. Almost 3 years worth of exclusive podcasts will be available to you instantly, and that includes all of our limited miniseries, which are Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, Talking Futurama, and the currently unfurling Talking Mission Hill, all available for you the second you sign up for $5 at patreon.com patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. There's also interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons, and so much more happening at that level. But Henry can tell everybody what is happening at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. One mega-long podcast once a month just for patrons.
That's right. If you enjoy the What a Cartoon podcast, but wish we talked about a feature film for twice as long, well, then you need to listen to the What a Cartoon movie podcast, only for $10 and up subscribers at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. You get to hear our preview of it every month in the What a Cartoon feed. But if you go to $10 a month, you can hear the full thing and get the entire back catalog. Our most recent one, Toy Story 2, what a classic, the first Pixar sequel. And if you sign up now, you'll get to hear in June Space Jam, the amazing Michael Jordan commercial that stars
amazing
Bugs Bunny.
in scare quotes.
Yes,
right?
yeah, and also tons of other classic cartoons, films in there like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, Akira, a Goofy movie, and too many others to list. So please sign up at the $10 level to hear over 70 hours of exclusive premium podcasts at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And if you've never signed up for a Patreon before, it's so easy to do. And once you do, you're given a code, and you have access to that code at all times. And you drop that code into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And bam, there you have it. Our bonus podcast right next to all of your existing free podcasts that you already listen to. And there is also a Patreon app you can download that will also let you access our bonus content. But either way, it is so easy to access everything you can unlock by subscribing to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. That's it for this break. We'll let you get into our exploration of our favorite deranged duck detective, Duckman.
Hey, who let you in and how'd you get past the sentries, barbed wire, and attack dogs? I know, you're sick and tired of seeing repeats on my show. Well, don't blame me. Blame the genius USA exec that only ordered 13 episodes. Who's sorry now? I'm sipping pina coladas and he's... Well, why don't we just ask him? Oh, pool boy. Now get out of here. You're blocking my son.
An all-new Duckman, Saturday nights on USA.
There's only one way I can explain it. Tickle the ivories.
I spent a year and a half in the tiki room at the Toledo Holiday Inn.
Play, Gypsy, play! There's a wild, funny feeling that you feel inside when it comes bubbling out. Ha ha! It sends your senses reeling. It can't be denied, and it comes spurting out. Ha ha! Take all the world's money and increase it by half, then offer it to me. I'd still rather laugh. There's no bigger pisser than a pie in the kiss as it comes gushing out. Ha ha!
Does it aim to...
So we're back talking about the episode Cocktails for Four, the season 3 finale. And up front, Duckman is not streaming anywhere legally, but there is a very comprehensive DVD set that's like $20. Previously, there were 2 DVD sets that were a little pricier. I mean, those are still in print, so go for those if you want. But it's all in one DVD set for $20. You get 70 episodes of Duckman. Buy it. Buy it now. They'll make more Duckman if you do.
I have to complain to CBS that they did not properly pack them. My discs were pretty loose in the box I just bought. But
when you buy like 10 discs in a box that small, you're just taking a gamble. You're rolling the dice.
But hey, no, there were no scratches on them. So though actually I think I discovered there might have been the slightest of scuffs on the episode for this one where I got you the sounds because we had a little trouble with one little clip in it.
That third act was a real pain in the ass to get sounds from. But
I spent the $25 and totally worth it. I wish there were more extras on it, but hey, at least I have Duckman forever. I had gotten rid of all those DVDs because I thought everything's going to be streaming everywhere, but now I'm like, not really. Not everything's streaming.
We need to get like Mountaintop, the Paramount streaming network or whatever. Duckman is the star of that show. So Cocktails for Four, who wrote this episode completely unplanned on my part, by the way. This episode is written by Doug Chamberlain and Chris Webb, the 2 of the credited screenwriters on Toy Story 2, which as of this recording was our last What a Cartoon movie we recorded.
That's right. Yeah, that's so funny that we end up with talking about these 2 guys again.
Yeah, so they wrote another episode of Duckman called Clear and Presidente Danger, Danger, where Duckman becomes a third world dictator.
Ah, yeah, the Banana Republic episode. That's a really great one.
And I
feel like every animated sitcom, that was something we really picked up on in this time of us rewatching a lot of Duckman. The Duckman did these types of episodes, like these themed episodes. I'm not saying future cartoons rip them off, but they do them, and then within 10 years, other shows, other primetime adult animated shows would do an episode that was, pretty similar in theme and place. Like they did a Native American casino episode 3 years before the Simpsons did it. They did an episode that American Dad basically did of Roger becomes a Banana Republic dictator.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Duckman crawled so they could walk. So Doug Chamberlain, Toy Story 2 was his last writing credit. So with Chris Webb, he wrote 2 episodes of Duckman, 1 episode of Bruno the Kid, and an episode of Weird Science. So that's who Doug Chamberlain is. And Chris Webb was Chamberlain's writing partner for all these things, except after that he wrote 1 TV movie in 2013. So not a lot of writing behind these guys. They're still alive as far as I know.
Maybe those Toy Story residuals just are so much like, I'm just going to rent a house with this until I die.
That's what I would do.
Hell yeah.
So directed by Donovan Cook and Bob Hathcock. So these guys have fascinating careers, both of them. So 2 directors on this episode. Donovan Cook.
Double directors. That is strange in the world of primetime animation.
So Donovan Cook is the creator of 2 Stupid Dogs. So
Whoa.
up front, there you go.
And so he already had 2 Stupid Dogs behind him and then directed this. Because that show was like 94, 95.
He went from like Hanna-Barbera to Klasky Csupo. So before that, though, he had minor roles at Disney on things like The Little Mermaid and The Prince and the Pauper.
Okay.
And then he returned to Disney eventually to co-direct movies like Return to Neverland and the 2004 direct-to-DVD Three Musketeers movie with Mickey, Donald, and Goofy.
Okay, so he never got to true theatrical level, though I think that Return to Neverland was released in theaters.
I saw it in theaters with my girlfriend at that time.
But that felt more like a direct-to-video movie being shown in theaters, right? Like
Definitely. I mean, animation was good, but it wasn't like, theatrical good.
I mean, you can with your eyes, you can tell the difference between the budget on that movie and, say, Brother Bear from around the same time. But yeah, somebody's got to direct those direct-to-video things.
And Donovan Cook would go on to direct episodes of things like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, which is very popular with parents and their children, The Adventures of Kid Danger for Nick.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. And he directed 2 other episodes of Duckman.
All right, a couple animation lifers stopping off on this episode.
Let's talk about Bob Hathcock. So a bit older than Donovan Cook because his first directing credit I can find is from 1982, though he started in animation in the early 70s. And if I listed every bad Hanna-Barbera show he worked on, you would fall asleep. So the trash decade of HB, he was all over that shit.
Whenever we cover a thing with a director that has credits before 1990, I just have to say, like, look, they directed on every 80s toy commercial. Like, I could list 17 episodes of Brave Star that they did, but just believe me that they directed a lot of things.
And Bob Hathcock was a major wheel down at the Smurfs factory. So he directed 86 of the 417 segments of Smurfs.
Good Lord.
And also was story director for a number of years on the show. So imagine, like, 10 years before this, he was working on Smurfs, and now he's working on Duckman. The exact opposite of Smurfs.
He was the king of the Smurf village, and now is doing Duckman.
He was director Smurf.
I don't know internationally how well the Smurfs maintained their popularity, but in our youth, Smurfs were everywhere, and then at a certain point, it just stopped, and there just were not Smurfs.
We as society said enough.
Enough Smurfs. I mean, you get real tired of Smurfs after a while. They don't have much enduring legacy.
How did that gimmick last 400 episodes? I'm Smurfing mad about this.
The kids today, though, the Smurf movies, they had to turn them into, they tried to make like a real-ish movie with the Smurfs, and then after the first one, like, no, it just needs needs to be set in Europe because that's the only people who watch the Smurfs movies, and they need to sing popular songs because that's what kids want.
God. So again, he did too much, frankly, in his career. It's offensive, frankly. But he was the supervising director of the 1988 Garbage Pail Kids series that never aired in America. And it's actually not that gross. But CBS was like, we ordered this cartoon, but we will not put it on the air.
Wow.
Put in a Muppet Babies rerun instead, which is what they did.
Hey, you know, I wasn't complaining about it then, though I was one of the squeamish kids who felt that the Garbage Pail Kids were far too dirty for my sensibilities.
They crossed the line. I love Garbage Pail Kids. And it's on DVD if you want to see it. I'm sure it's bad. So eventually he moved to Disney, and he was supervising director on the last season of DuckTales, the non-anime season, which is bad. Bubba Duck and all those dumb characters they added.
At least Bubba Duck, they made him funny in the reboot show.
Oh, he's in it.
Yeah, he's got an episode. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And he also directed 10 episodes of Aladdin. And so
yeah, that's good.
Bob Hathcock also, so he was directing Duckman. He was directing things at Classic Jupa like Santo Bugito, which is a just forgotten series they did.
I really don't remember that.
About like a border town filled with bugs.
Oh, okay.
On CBS, I believe.
Right. That's sort of reawakening my memories.
And also Jumanji, that another Everett Peck design series.
See, I just so turned every Klasky Chupo show you listed me. I'm like, this is why I hate Klasky Chupo. This is why I've been so negative on all their productions, just because it felt like the weird cartoon factory. Now, you know, hey, I welcome that kind of diversity in styles in today's animation that sometimes feels a little too samey, but back then I was just when I saw Rocket Power, I'm like, more of this, really?
Yeah, I mean, after a decade of being force-fed Klasky Chupa, we spent a decade after that saying no more, and now we're warming back up to that idea. Like, I'll take a little Chupo at a time.
I'm sure Arlene Klasky is hoping we're warming up more and more as she's pitching the Rugrats reboots.
Is that still happening?
You know, I feel like I saw some news story saying it's still happening, but it's hit a snag or whatever.
Okay, I'll believe it when I see the new Animaniacs.
No, yeah, that we'll never see that. HBO Max is new when we're recording this, and the annoyance of like, oh yeah, it just doesn't have Tiny Toons, it doesn't have Animaniacs, all that stuff they signed up to Hulu, not on HBO Max.
All 9 Adult Swim shows are on there though.
Yes, yeah.
You know, but by the time Animaniacs goes live, there's going to be like Kofifi jokes on that.
Oh god, yeah. They're going to have so many great jokes about. Honestly, they'll probably have jokes about the Hillary administration. They'll be like, and obviously Hillary Clinton is going to be our president when this comes out.
That actually reminds me, Henry, not to delay getting to the episodes too much longer, but in Duckman, there was a joke about Strom Thurmond. They tell the joke, and the screen freezes, and then there's like a narrator saying, if Strom Thurmond dies after this goes live, just know we wrote it before he died.
Oh God!
So they have the same risk that we do.
That's great.
Yeah, but he would live another like 10 years.
Yeah, they should have known that he's too evil to die in his 90s.
So sorry. One last thing about Bob Hathcock, co-director. He's still doing stuff, probably in his like 60s or 70s. Most recently, he was a supervising producer on the Big Hero 6 TV series at Disney.
Okay, you can watch that on Disney Plus now.
So we finally have hit Duckman, and we have the truncated version of the opening because these shows would run pretty long according to a lot of interviews. Like they had to cut a lot of material, and eventually they developed a more truncated version of the opening. But the full version is great. It's about 30 seconds, but it has that super awesome Klasky Chupo art aesthetic meets like indie comics collage art. It is so cool looking.
I love how like seedy and skeezy it feels. Like it. The show often forgets that he is a private detective, but the feel of the opening is definitely that.
I'll tell you what, I watched like 15 episodes just to warm myself up back to the Duckman universe. I don't think in one of them he was actually a detective.
Yeah, I can only think of him in one episode being told, hey, I sure get kidnapped a lot for a guy who never does any detective work. But also they have in the extended version, you know, you see a lady in her underwear, which does feel like USA's like, you know, horny teens demographic they're speaking to there.
Yes.
Like this promise of, hey, you might see a sexy lady in this, but she'll
be a hideous like Klasky Chupo design though.
Yeah, and
there are some like heaving bosoms in this episode.
Oh, quite. Yeah, the sexy women, even when they draw women that are just supposed to be like a sexy bikini model in their 20s in this show, they are drawn to such ludicrous extremes and it so works for it. But I asked myself, like, this had to have messed up the sexualities of a lot of people who are getting off to this in their teen years.
I didn't find it like it wasn't like masturbation material, but it was titillating. It's like, ooh, this is a naughty show. And like the opening is great because it really defines every character within like the 2 seconds they have to show the image of them. And of course, we didn't mention Grandmama, who is the catatonic grandmother who communicates with farting.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
What a great idea for a character. I love it so much.
That she can do. She kind of follows the rules of Jerry Blank's dad, where she seemingly does a lot of things when she's not on screen, because she'll like go through costume changes or be in a new spot, but she never moves when on screen except when she farts. That episode where they think she dies and bury her, and then she explodes out of the ground with a super fart.
Yes.
And also the one where the Brian Doyle Murray voiced look-alike of her takes over and then tries to have sex with Duckman.
He takes her place for a number of episodes.
That's right. Yeah. There's that great line where when they do little lines that spoke to an actual continuity in the series, those were my favorites, including the one where Ajax says, hey, remember last week when Grandmama was replaced by that person, and clearly the evil one went to jail, right? And then the Grandmama looks at the screen and pulls up a cigar and goes like, yeah.
Brian Doyle Murray, always a great gravelly voice. And it's important to note, this series explicitly takes place in L.A., but it's the L.A. you don't see on TV in shows like Beverly Hills 90210. This is the L.A. that we see when we travel there.
Yes.
So whenever I go to L.A. and we get like a Airbnb in just a regular Los Angeles suburban neighborhood, I can't help but think of Duckman, because they're just drawing the L.A. neighborhoods that were around Klasky Chupa, which is where we were staying by last time, right?
For sure, yeah. That's when we got to see the Klasky Chupa building in downtown Hollywood, and when we were walking by like, a small park in Hollywood, I was just like, oh yeah, they were just drawing their backyard. And it was easy to draw these things when you drove to work at the Hollywood studio for Klasky Chupo. That when we did Bonkers as well, that kind of just overpass suburban life drawing it, you just feel like closed in and choked with smog and just wanting to die when you see it. We've now been to there enough times that at least it doesn't seem as terrifying to me as when I see it in Duckman.
I believe Duckman's house is just a house that Everett Peck saw when he was driving. He just stopped and sketched it really quick. It's like, that's Duckman's house now. So yes, we can finally start the episode. Cocktails for four.
We won't see any. Yeah, we talked about Cornfed. We talk about his house. We talk about kids who aren't Ajax. Not seeing that in this episode.
No, this is a bottle episode, and we'll go into more of that later. But here we are. Duckman has a ruined Saturday ahead of him.
Yeah, right! I'm giving up an afternoon of prime grade A, flat-on-my-face, self-induced veg-out time just to come out to Wonder Bread Heights and make chit-chat with total strangers who probably think they're better than me just because they make more money, hold down steady jobs, put away savings for their kids' futures, and aren't wanted by Interpol. How can people live like that?
Shut up and drive, you urban cow patty. We're doing this for Ajax, and until we get the results back from those blood tests I commissioned, you're still his father. This is important to him. You're about to meet his new girlfriend's parents, and we are going to do all we can to make the best impression possible.
Rumph. So, Ajax, if I'm gonna meet this new love of your life, I might as well know her name.
Tommy.
Well, nice knowing you, son. Not like I don't love you or anything, but you know how people are. They'll assume that sort of thing runs in the family, and frankly, I got a tough enough time picking up chicks to begin with. So, good luck. Be careful, and maybe we'll see you on TV sometime lip-syncing over the rainbow at one of those pride parades.
So there's some lines they don't cross with Duckman, and I think someone was like, okay, Duckman can't also be homophobic, so give him another reason to be upset that his son is gay.
I like that his screeching tire halt, it says enough, and he's homophobic to an extent, but he isn't like, he is disowning his son. He's like, get out of my car right now. But
it's all about him getting laid more.
Yeah. That's, at least they put it through the prism of, I have no problem with gay people, except to the extent that they would prevent me from having sex with a woman. So please get out of here. But after you said that about the number of pages in this, this is when I just fall, like, they talk so fast.
Yeah. It's like when the audio is isolated, you really notice it too, just how fast both Duckman and Bernice talk.
Except that makes Ajax stand out even more as just well, Dodd, like, yeah. And I think that's the best joke in the whole series about Ajax's mispronunciation, like his California
like totally
mispronunciation.
Just brain dead surfer voice, but
that pays off with him mispronouncing Tammy as
Tommy. Yes, so Bernice asks Ajax to spell Tommy. Then we find out, yes, it is indeed a woman who is his girlfriend. And
I love the scene begins with Duckman. Like, you have this happy suburb instantly spoiled by Duckman's arrival, including him almost running over a poor dog.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't go there.
Yeah, and also I just love Bernice's speech of just like, until this blood test come back to prove you're not his father, you still have to do these things.
I gotta say, like, Bernice is pretty hot. I'm not a furry, but they managed to doll her up because normally she's wearing like an unflattering like workout outfit, like a leotard and stuff.
Because she's always working out with other, aggro liberal ladies, women's libbers, I guess. It's kind of in the 90s mold of. And so, especially that emphasizes her big thighs, probably thigh master thighs is what they would be called then. But now she is dressed, in a very very pretty outfit that shows off her body.
I like her hair too.
Yeah,
she's got hair and makeup on. She's ready for this.
Yeah, Bernice is great. She was lucky that she ended up with with her paramour at this as well.
And it shows where the story is leading because they run into a lawn jockey when Duckman like screeches all over this yard. It turns out that they're there where they need to be.
Yeah, it's great that he arrives there and that you don't fully see the lawn jockey, but you can assume it's very offensive.
Yeah, I mean, there are no inoffensive lawn jockeys.
Yeah. Even the white ones, you're like, that probably was a different color.
You repainted that, didn't you?
But that puts you in the strict suburban world that this is set in. And the Duckman starts the day by destroying the lawn of the couple he's about to meet. That's just regular ass Duckman.
So yeah, they go to the door, ring the bell. It's very ominous sounding, and Bernice immediately questions like, who would have an ominous sounding doorbell like that? And immediately we get the appearance of King Chicken. Now see, if you're a new Duckman viewer, it's very important for you to know that King Chicken is Duckman's nemesis. And every King Chicken episode starts with him in disguise as another character. And by the end of Act 2, you realize, if you didn't recognize Tim Curry's voice, that's King Chicken. So it's a big deal that King Chicken is appearing undisguised immediately in Act 1.
That is a great point, because the trick of most of the episodes are a new character will appear, and you may or may not recognize the voice as Tim Curry, but then by the end, they reveal themselves to be King Chicken in a disguise, and then he gives his big speech about how Duckman tortured him as a teenager, and now he's going to get his revenge. The best joke on that was where the joke internally in the show was that Tim Curry refused to say that line again, and so they had to cut in a live-action guy saying that the news was Tim Curry quit the show because he had to repeat it.
I laughed so hard at that. I watched that episode too.
Another great one was when King Chicken was disguised as a woman, and so he was doing her voice, and Bernice is attracted to that woman.
I watched that one too.
She is very sexually confused in that episode.
And then after she finds out it's King Chicken, she goes, thank God.
Yeah. That's so great.
Yes.
But here he's, in just his regular self, wearing a "Kiss Me, I'm Cornish" t-shirt or apron. That's really cute.
Lots of eating chicken jokes with him, and the pun and like the visual and like naming pun for him is great because he's a chicken who looks like Elvis, King Chicken. Yeah. But also there's the dish Chicken a la King, so you get that too.
Yeah, and his design is great because he has, in his hair is in like a very phallic point in a Elvis kind of style, but also fits with a chicken. And how his
with his girlfriend or wife.
I love how his legs are drawn to be like kind of fat too. Like he has there's a lot of mentions of cellulite on this show, and he definitely has it as well.
So yes, King Chicken appears, and Duckman and him just immediately start squabbling with like just unintelligible dialogue because they're just back and forth with each other, talking over each other.
I love that he finishes that line with saying like, I'm getting nostalgic for a few minutes ago and I thought he was gay.
And yeah, Ajax, he will do this many times in this episode, just interrupts the tension by asking a question. So like, where is Tammy? King Chicken goes, upstairs, second door on your left, wait on the bed. She's getting out of the shower. We find out where Ajax's night is leading.
Yeah, I love that joke that they don't, none of them care that, or they just seem to think it's kids having fun and non-sexual fun, but the descriptions we get starting with that one, they are like pure erotic novel territory, verging on very weird sex acts as
I don't
well.
know, Ajax is getting some in this episode.
Oh yeah, I love that Ajax is just like, he's just fucking and nobody's really commenting on that. And then also we never get to see Tammy.
That's true.
Now you hear her giggle off screen just so you know that she does exist.
So Bernice suggests they set aside their blood feud.
Hi, Kingy.
Bernice. I can't believe your nephew's Tammy's new boyfriend.
You can't believe. I'm getting nostalgic for a few minutes ago when he was gay.
Look, both of you, can't you set aside your death blood feud for one afternoon? Just for the sake of the kids.
Well, one
guess
afternoon.
so.
But the second we leave, I'm peeing on their lawn.
Wait a second. Ajax said we were meeting Tammy's parents with an S. You mean to tell me all these years after those many times we were together, after I threw my back out for you, you've been married?
Bernice, please. It's not what you think. You see, my wife is dead.
Dead?
So yeah, he tells a huge lie about
Where
his
does
wife.
he think he's gonna get away with this?
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Like his wife is literally waiting in the next room. Like, what are you gonna do with this lie, King Chicken?
But I guess he's just a constant liar. But that Bernice and King Chicken got together because of their shared love of hating Duckman.
Yeah, like King Chicken is the only one who hates Duckman more than Bernice.
But I also love how active their sex life is when they explain, like, after I threw my back out for you, like they're getting into some fun positions.
They have some crazy animal sex because they're both animals.
Yeah. The King Chicken, though, God, every line Tim Curry says,
Yeah.
Tim Curry has to live forever. I will knock on this wood right now, but he has to live forever. He's the greatest.
I mean,
just the greatest.
and you wouldn't even know he's a very British man, just cramming that accent down into this amazing like voice I've never heard before.
Yeah, she's like, he kind of just sighs out dead when he says it. It's so good. He's everything. He enunciates like peas, like he pops peas big time. Everything's great about how he plays his character in a voice that like doesn't exist otherwise.
Yeah, he just created it himself. It's not like a southern voice. It's so theatrical too. I just love it. But yeah, King Chicken tells his sob story about, like, I was holding my dying wife in my arms. I'll never forget her last words. And then we hear Honey Chicken saying, "Oh, Kingy Pie, is that our guest?" So immediately his story is revealed to be a lie.
This makes me want some honey chicken now. I think I have some mandarin orange chicken in the freezer. I should heat up. But yeah, so I guess with Honey's introduction, should we mention the what's this based on or influenced by?
Oh yeah, the movie and of course the play, the Edward Albee play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a fantastic movie. This episode takes that premise and kind of runs with it in some new directions. But yeah, it is the movie's great. Check out the movie. It's Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. But it's just basically this drunk couple arguing in front of a younger couple all night and just going off on each other, and it's fascinating.
It is a dark view into the lives of a old couple that has so much negative history of codependence and unhappiness and infidelity, and then they're like, oh, we invite over a young couple and fuck with them all night like that, which isn't exactly what happens in this, but it is about a marriage on display and the many problems with it, and Honey is one of the four lead characters in it, is her name. And I don't recall if did they say before King Chicken's real name, or was it introduced in this one?
I think it's in this one for the first time.
Because George is another lead character in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So, but yes, the reveal that he is George Herbert Walker Chicken is pretty great. As a kid, I did not understand the George W. Bush reference.
They're making fun
H.W.
of
Bush.
the veteran Henry. They're making fun of a veteran.
Man, I've been on the receiving end of being told I shouldn't make fun of H.W. Bush, but I don't care. Fuck that guy.
So yeah, we see a preview of the night and where it will be going as Honey Chicken comes down the stairs very drunkenly in this very tight dress with
she squeezed like a sausage out of both ends from the corset we'll see her wearing later in the episode.
The drunk acting and the drunk animation on her is so great, and weirdly enough, played by Judith Light, the mom from Who's the Boss?
Angela.
It's
yeah.
Angela herself.
Yeah, when I looked that up, I was like, what the fuck? She's the boss of Who's the Boss? Is, well, some would argue that Tony Danza
I didn't
is the
take
boss.
that class. I dropped out. I didn't finish it, I mean.
But yeah, she is so good in this, playing totally against type, a drunken Southern belle, like an aging Southern belle who's constantly drunk, but also because of the twist at the end where she gets sober so fast, you know that she's playing her as a fake drunk or who's playing up her drunkenness.
Yeah, she actually has total control of this. So all the way she's like making fun of herself, she knows she's like in control the entire time.
Yeah, and the way she's needling other people into things, like, yeah, she's so good as Honey. Like, Angela is doing such a great job.
Yes, so Honey introduces herself as Casey's wifey, and Duckman introduces Bernice
Golf
as his
Widow on the Weekend. I like that.
That's
too.
right, Golf Widow. I couldn't. There are no captions on these DVDs. I didn't know what she was saying.
Things are said very fast on this. Yeah.
If any DVD needs captions, it's this one. But then Duckman is like, "Here is my not wifey, Bernice,"
and she kicks him right in the crotch.
Yes.
Great animation on that.
The Foley on Duckman being hurt by Bernice and how his glasses always fall off, which also contain his eyes and eyebrows.
Yeah, God, love those glasses.
Yeah.
The lead character should wear glasses more often and things. It doesn't have to just be the nerdy sidekick.
It's a fun accessory.
And I mean, his teeth always sticking out too. Just his natural teeth sticking out. So funny.
We talked about how weird the characters look. Like, Duckman is such an amazingly great design. Like, you just stare at it. It's like the eyes that exist just like floating on his beak as part of the glasses, that like shock of red hair that's like a wave of red hair.
The way his glasses like curl into themselves too. Like, yeah, I don't think I truly appreciated it until I watched your lovely fiance Nina draw him on model, like explicitly pulling out the model sheet, like, nope, the feet go like this.
Duckman is not pudgy, so don't ever draw him pudgy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Duckman flirts a little with Honey, and they seem to have a rapport with each other immediately. So it's nice to see Duckman flirt in a vaguely non-sexual way. He's just being kind of playful, right?
As light as possible.
Yeah.
There are occasional jokes in other Duckman episodes that imply that he doesn't understand what consent is in any way.
That's true. There are some ways you can't make a character that awful anymore.
Yeah. There's lines where I'm like, boy, but in most of those times, either Corn-Fed or Fluffy and Uranus will be like, oh my God. Like, they at least comment on the monstrousness of him.
Someone is there to tell him it's not okay. But yeah, I think the joke is like, he finds out her name is Honey. He's like, oh, so if there was a bun in your oven, would it be honey baked? And they both giggle. Does Bernice hit him again?
Yeah, I think it's a smash on the head for that one. I also like watching her come out with those slow gin fizzes. I could go for one of those about now.
So yes, Honey wants to invite them in.
George Herbert Walker Chicken, where are your manners? Invite our guests in for a drink.
Honey, this man is my arch nemesis. I'll tolerate his presence for Tammy's sake, but I will not have a drink with him.
Oh, pshaw. I don't even know what an arch nemesis is, but do come in. King's always throwing around those $2 phrases. It's chief adversary this, world domination that, but little old me can't make heads or tails of it. I just leave all that man stuff to the man.
I also love the Foley here. Great attention to detail. You can hear the clinking of the glass and like actually like drinks spilling out of it. And then you can hear like the wet slap of Duckman's feet on the ground because everyone else is wearing shoes but Duckman because he's just naked.
Yeah, it's I mean, Duckman is more dressed in this episode than most, but he's still bottomless. Yeah, it's there's always weird jokes where they seem to imply like you could see Duckman's penis, and then other times they're like, oh no, he doesn't have a penis.
I think he even says, I don't even have a penis.
Oh yes,
in one episode.
That's right.
We could see. So Honey's rather charming despite being super sloppy. She's a nice host. She wants to put all this aside and just have a good time with everybody. Seemingly,
She's the character she's playing is like the perfect homemaker, like that. And their house does look great, like this suburban bliss that they live in. I'm like, man, I kind of would like a house like this.
It's a great like tacky 70s house. I love all the 70s decor. I'm surprised they're not eating fondue later or something.
Yeah, you're right. It's one of the few things missing there. It's a very 70s house party. Or a Jell-O mold should be there. Yeah.
Well, actually, not disgusting. But
we're too hungry. This is before lunch, so anything sounds tasty.
For as fast as this show moves, I also like, okay, all this rapid fire dialogue, all this violence, and then like 20 seconds of silence as the characters all just glare at each other and like drum their fingers before being interrupted by Ajax. So there's like 18 or 20 seconds of just like pure silence after all of that madness before it.
It's so, but it's not. I like too that it's not a static shot. It's just like constantly cutting to all of them looking at each other. And it's not that they're just bored, but it's the awkward silence of like, what are we all keeping inside right now? Bernice is keeping in her rage at being lied to this entire time by King Chicken, and then King Chicken is both mad at Duckman but also ashamed of what she's found out.
And this is when Ajax interrupts the tension by asking for canola oil, rope, and a zucchini. So we don't know what's happening in that bedroom.
Where's that zucchini going? Like,
yeah,
I guess.
I mean, you're going to oil that zucchini up first.
Yeah, well,
and the rope is to pull it out so it doesn't get stuck.
Yes, though based on the next request he makes, I think it actually does get stuck.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God. I'm glad it's all off screen.
Yeah, I have to hope that, I guess Ajax keeps coming out dressed the same, so I have a feeling the zucchini's not being used on him, I don't think.
I would hope not. So Tammy tells him to try the kitchen. This is when Tammy comes out with those Slogan
silly
fizzes.
Kids. Like, I love that she's like, these kids getting into trouble. Like,
and I never understood the drinking to make a social situation better until rewatching these as an adult. So they immediately like glug their drinks down. Whenever anybody drinks on Duckman, is it like you can hear them do it. So they all do that.
Every actor does a unique glug, 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 glug. It's so good. Yeah. And it did make me thirsty for it. And also, yes, the awkwardness. I think the only times I've like wolfed down a drink like that, it's not been at like house parties, but it's been at work parties with an open bar. We were at a work party with an open bar. Like, you know what? Third screwdriver time. I cannot talk to these people.
Time to get loose. But yeah, Honey calls them all thirsty guppies and asks King Chicken to put on some tunes. And this is when Bernice starts hinting at what she has going on with King Chicken.
You know, it's so revealing to see the things a man acquires for his home. The things that make him happy.
Not everything a man acquires makes him happy, especially if he didn't comparison shop beforehand.
I know the perfect store that has everything in just the right size and color. Too bad it's no longer open.
I think said store has forgotten what an inconceivably long shopping list a certain customer has.
No, in fact, I think a certain customer should see a specialist about a credit extension.
Well, I think...
Who gives a damn what you think?
Dinner! I think this is going to be a special evening.
That's the act break.
Great act break.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, these act breaks even feel like from a play. Like, they end it feels even more like a 3-act play than a regular 3-act cartoon show.
Yeah, they would like cut the lights or whatever and the curtain would go down and then they'd reset. I will say, like, obviously Simpsons is the better show compared to Duckman. Duckman is still very good, but I like these risks that they take. Like, you might not have discovered it until now, but this is going to be a bottle episode in the same house. But I watched, like, again, 15 of these, and I noticed, like, this entire act is just in one room. Like, they're just in the living room for this whole act, or they're just in this office for one act. Like, they were willing to take the risk to just have one location for an act, or to do, like, again, a weird premise or a bottle episode like this.
Yeah, and when you see this in the context of the episodes that came before it and after it, their extreme choices were more about doing big things you could only do in animation, like a full-scale war between the neighborhoods, or an episode where Duckman becomes like 50 feet tall and is constantly growing. They could do those episodes because they were animation, and then those are challenging in their own way. But then here with this episode, they challenge themselves of like, what if we made this in no way different from a live action show? Like, a live action show could fully do this episode, like, without having to change anything or really like go beyond their budget.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in this that could not exist in like even a play.
Yeah, I mean, you need like when she kicks him in the balls, or some of the like light action in this compared to other Duckmen. I think a stunt person could just pretend to do that on any random episode of like Friends or Seinfeld. And yes, also the comparison to shop
Yeah.
first.
You're getting good at that.
Yeah, and also
just over enunciating is great. Maybe it helps him to like push down that accent too. I mean, it's funny to hear him as the character Gabriel Knight in those adventure games, because it's Tim Curry doing a Southern accent. Not that good. So maybe that's why he didn't do that for King Chicken, or try that for King Chicken.
I mean, him even acting badly or messing up is iconic. Like his speech about space in his Russian accent from that Command and Conquer Red Alert game. It's the greatest.
This is apropos of nothing, but in the final episode, when King Chicken is like talking about Bernice, how much they have in common, he asks her like, "What's the best ending of Clue?" And she's like, "Why choose when you can just rent the videotape?" He's like, "That's why I love her." Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
So obviously he was in Clue,
I forgot
right?
that. Yes, yeah. He was actually Mr. Body. I choose to believe that ending, that he was Mr. Body pretending to be the butler the entire time. But yeah, that another, much like Duckman, very underrated high concept thing.
I like how also Duckman in this episode is sort of like the innocent bystander to all this tension.
You're right. Yeah, he actually is the best behaved of all four characters. He's the only one not living a lie either. Every other character is like lying or deceitful, and he's the one who, including like, does a couple things in here. Is like, why would Duckman care about someone's feelings in this moment? But maybe that shows he already has feelings for Honey in this.
It's the drinking, I think.
I also like Bernice's description of her body is just like all the right colors and in all the right places. I was like, is this about your vagina?
It's no longer open.
Yes, yeah, close.
So yes.
Apparently, King Chicken thinks he's packing some heat as well. But I think Bernice is more correct about his endowments.
So yeah, we come back and Duckman is eating ravenously, which is something that they lost in The Simpsons. So he's eating like a season 2 Homer.
Yeah, he's even more disgusting because food is just flying out everywhere. I love Bernice tells him like, one of these, why don't you try swallowing?
And King Chicken's like, you should try choking too. And Bernice yells at King Chicken to, that's my job to make fun of Duckman.
I don't need your help insulting Duckman.
And then when Duckman laughs King Chicken, Bernice just slams his head down into the food. A lot of violence against Duckman in these episodes.
Which Honey just kind of deals with.
And Honey is again doing the like, oh, little me kind of act, which is like, oh, I hope the casserole's okay. Who could figure out all these kitchen gadgets with all their buttons and dials? You have to be a rocket scientist.
It's so good.
And Bernice is just like this woman. And Bernice is like, oh, and you're no rocket scientist, are you? So she could tell she's getting pissed off.
And the way Honey just goes like, no, sir, I am not. No, sirree, Bob. Like, so good.
Yeah.
Like,
and she's like this bitch.
Yeah, she knows that Bernice is fucking. I mean, Bernice would hate Honey anyway because Bernice is such an empowered 90s woman who, wants to do everything. And here she has this like humble homemaker who is like downplaying her intelligence at every turn. So there's already cultural differences between Bernice and Honey that if she wasn't in competition with her, she'd still hate her.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the contempt in Bernice's character for Honey when she says that line.
And though I'm with her, I own a crock pot and an air fryer, and it's hard to, sometimes it's hard to keep track of all those things.
Just gotta say, never push the popcorn button on your microwave. Who knows what could happen? I don't trust it, frankly.
I had one microwave that actually had the perfect popcorn popcorn button. I was like, this is the greatest. But my new place I moved into, it came with I'm complaining about my free microwave in my, but it's built into the wall, and so its popcorn button not half as good. I set it to 3 minutes when I make popcorn now.
We'll tell you the model number after the show. This is when Bernice and King Chicken both go for the yams at the same time. They touch hands, they lock eyes, and that's when they decide to have hot love in the kitchen. But I love the brief exchange where he's like, "Out of yams, need more. I'll help."
Yeah, they are as thirsty as they've ever been.
Yeah.
and yeah, Curry and Nancy Travis, I wonder if they recorded at the same time.
It sounded like everybody but Jason Alexander recorded at the same time because he was, the Seinfeld superstar, always busy on that show.
Yeah, even though it's more flexible schedule to do animation voicing, when you're on a major sitcom, like that's a 6-day to 7-day a week job when you're filming. I wonder how many times they just waited to record him and all of his lines until the summer break on Seinfeld.
It could be, yeah. Like I hear interviews with him and he's just like, I missed all the fun. Like he likes acting with other actors, but he was just simply too busy with Seinfeld, so he very rarely got to record with other people.
But if they didn't record together, it still sounds that way, because Curry and Nancy Travis, when they're acting out sex noises, are so great.
We're gonna hear it in a minute.
Yeah.
But I love Honey knows what they're doing and where they're going to go, and she's still like feigning stupidity. She's like, "There's more in the thingamajigger," and then they go off. And so this next scene, Duckman and Honey are in the kitchen alone. Bernice and King Chicken are having sex. Duckman and Honey are in the dining room alone, and Bernice and King Chicken are having sex in the next room.
Yes.
And I love Duckman in this scene because he is both distracted and also like, why isn't this woman noticing? He's just like looking behind him, and then at a certain point he starts like bracing himself against the walls. It's bulging from all the sex that's happening in the other room.
He's trying to make sure the thing behind him doesn't fall on him because it's getting blasted off of the wall by the force of the two bodies smashing into the other side of the wall.
But yeah, this clip is not safe for work if you're at work right now, just to warn you, because there is like sex noises. So
you can pinpoint the moment where King enters Bernice, I think.
Yes, and when they finish. But here is that scene.
So, Kingy says you're a dick.
Huh? What?
A private detective. Isn't that what they're called?
Oh, right. Yes, I am.
Do you like it?
Like it?
It sounds so lonely. Detective work.
You're on my ankle. Oh, okay, there.
No, I work with someone. He's a pig. My partner is a pig.
How nice. I understand they're very smart.
Adorable break front. With the complete commemorative famous sports heroes turned killers play collection.
I got those to cheer up Kingy on his big 3-0.
You have a very lovely home.
What?
Your home. It's very lovely.
Thank you. I try my best.
Yeah, Duckman is not subtle.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I like how he goes from distracted to like concerned, and then he's trying to cover up the sound.
Yeah.
You have a very lovely home.
Well, I like that she has to say what, but also will not recognize what is obviously happening.
And we know she hears it
for sure.
Yeah,
yes,
because of what happens very soon.
And that commemorative plate jokes. It's an OJ joke, but I don't know other sports stars who became killers at that time. Obviously, now we live in the Aaron Hernandez has a higher body count than OJ Simpson, but
oh God, you're right. Yeah, Duckman could not have predicted that.
They didn't even realize how dark the history would come there, though. When she said for his big 3-0, I'm like, am I older than King Chicken now?
I think King Chicken's in his 40s.
That's what
they've
I
been
figure,
together for a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they have let's assume Tommy is 17. If they got married in like their early 20s, they'd be like 40 now.
That's true. I mean, Jason Alexander, when he started Duckman, he was only 35. So
wow, man.
We're almost as old as he was at the end of Duckman. Think about that.
That's a good marker for your life there. Yeah. And the little details I appreciate more in this now too, like when they come back into the room, how Bernice, like, she has to adjust her underwear back up through her pantyhose, because in one yank she pulled down her pantyhose and underwear to her knees, and now has to awkwardly adjust them
it's
back
like 4 frames of animation, but it tells a story. You know, it tells a good story. Again, this is directed by a Smurfs guy, co-directed by a Smurfs guy. So Duckman's just like, where are the yams? And Bernice is like, you got all you need. And he says, that makes 3 of us, apparently. And then King Chicken yells at Duckman for insulting him, because he's like, what are you implying, Duckman?
How dare you insult me in front of my wife, who is dangerously close to coherent?
Yes, he knows that, like, if Honey is drunk, he can get away with things.
He's been getting away with a lot for a long time. But also, Jason Alexander is so funny just saying the word McNugget.
Yes, he accuses King Chicken of dipping his McNuggets in something other than honey. Again, they get away with so much just with innuendo alone. They're very clever.
Yeah.
Also being a 10:30 show on cable.
And then the Duckman, I forgot how, when we talk about how great the writing is in it, their ability to do innuendos and double speak for terms, like the stuff they get away with through that is shocking. Like, obviously they can't actually show like full frontal nudity on the show, but everything they get away with in its place. I forgot in that same Road to Dendron episode, they fully get away with a joke of Duckman jerking off.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, there's a few of those in the series.
The joke I'm thinking of is when they're tied up on a camel and their hands are tied together, and it looks like Duckman is trying to undo his 2 wrists together. He's going, come on. And Cornfit says, you're not going to get those off. He's like, I'm not doing that. Come on. It's like, oh my God.
So he was just jerking off next to Cornfed.
And Cornfed's like, we're held captive and you can still jerk off.
Only on USA, folks. So yeah, this is when King Chicken gets very furious because Duckman is picking on him once again, as he did in school. And Duckman's like, I should start charging for these sessions, because he's got to always, when he meets King Chicken again, he's got to hear like, this is what Duckman did to me, and he made me so unpopular, and I was picked on all because of Duckman. So like, all of King Chicken's plans are just based on like petty grammar school grudge he has on Duckman.
He almost kills every person on Earth a couple times, and it's all just because of that. But that's why it's like Everpeck is just pulling from classic comic book tropes of, Dr. Doom hates Reed Richards, all because he was smarter than him in college. It all comes down to that.
So let's hear King Chicken's gripes.
Oh, what a speech.
Very good speech.
Look what you've done to me. The Kramers next door own a family dry cleaning business. Jim Rosenthal across the street's a CPA. Winnie's in real estate. By the way, lovely people and their front lawns to die for. But me... I sit in a basement all day thinking of ways to take over the world. Think we're carpooling to the PTA? I just wanted to belong, to be one of the guys. But I'd always end up running home, laughed at, humiliated, everyone hating me. You couldn't know what that's like.
I know exactly what that's like.
Oh, so dark things are coming out. That's when everyone just stares at Duckman.
This is it's a perfect second act play structure too.
Yeah.
Of just like the truth comes out, and that of course, and it's so easy to believe. Like, everyone hates Duckman too, and Duckman was in the unfortunate nerd position you are in the jungle of high school, which is if you don't bully someone else and make them below you in the totem pole, then you will suffer more.
That's true. It's like, this is the first show I ever saw like deal with that issue. Like, your bullies are not popular. They're also picked on. You're just lower on the food chain. So you need to find someone to bully yourself just to feel some sort of power in this prison you're in for 4 years.
I wonder if that speech too, with the specific names of the Rosenthal and Winnie, like, were those somebody's actual neighbors and they wanted to like make clear I like my neighbors? Though it also almost feels like all the names are so specifically Jewish that it almost feels like he's winding up for like an anti-Semitic rant, and that's why he has to say like, actually they're all great and they have lovely ones.
He's got to make sure people don't think of him in that way. Let's hear Duckman's confession next.
Oh, what? That never occurred to you? That I was the second most unpopular kid in school? That I made fun of you so I could be one of the guys? It was the only way I got to feel what it was like not to be the punching bag, not to be the outcast myself. And it's not like it's changed much for me either, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's a big moment in the series where Duckman actually apologizes to King Chicken for his abuse. When really, like, he didn't care. He found it weird that King Chicken would become his nemesis based on, like, things he didn't even remember.
He's a very unwanted arch enemy in this show. This is also when Ajax comes into the room and requests especially when he says the towels you don't mind of us throwing away after.
Yeah.
Like, that to me sounds like they, and barbecue tongs, that they are trying to remove that zucchini from some place.
Barbecue tongs, a buttered up bunt pan, and a towel they can throw away when they're done. I love him emerging into the room, just like walking into like the curtain that separates the rooms until he emerges through it.
Man, they at least he's having a good time this night. But they immediately like see eye to eye as fellow parents after all that. Yeah,
they immediately relate to each other. And then King Chicken's like, you got to come downstairs and see my office. And Duckman is just like a little reluctant. He's like, yeah, okay, sure. You know, he's still getting used to having his former archenemy be his new friend.
It's a man cave before a man cave, this office. I also like how they leave Honey and Bernice alone, and now they're like 10 times as awkward because they're friends all of a sudden.
So they're just alone again, and just another moment of silence that they linger on between the two. And King Chicken walks Duckman into the nucleus of his deadly realm, even though he's not through decorating yet, so Duckman can't judge. And again, more of the cheesy decor. We get some nice chicken variants of beer ads, like beer neon signs. So,
those are great.
Buck Weiser beer and also Millet beer signs. So yes, he's a chicken. We understand.
The designs on all of it are great. Like, and the photos in the background, like him with like Andy Warhol and Elvis
and Sammy Davis Jr. too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then we see the special section of his room. It's a horrific shrine to Duckman, but Duckman is touched by the attention to detail and the time he must have spent on this. He really cared about Duckman.
Yeah.
I love that pan down of the horrific Duckman shrine.
It's really great.
It's very well done. So yeah, this is when they go over some old memories.
It isn't. From 78, that whole giant spinning wheel of death thing? Talk about a crime. I can't believe I wore those platform shoes.
Look at my hair and those mutton chops. My God, you should have been killing me.
Hey, you have one of those fun machines.
Guilty as charged. It relaxes me, and it's great around the holidays.
May I?
Go ahead.
So yeah, and then King Chicken joins in on the fun machine, which
what
of
a
course,
great duet.
if you saw Talking Mission Hill, they had the same fun machine, right?
That's right. Yeah, that was in Unemployment Part 1. The purchase of his fun machine. Again, Duckman being about 2-3 years ahead of another show, and it's the exact same machine. Like this makes me wonder if in somebody's shared office they all knew the guy who bought this. They're like that these guys know the same writer who owns this that Bill and Josh knew, and they all knew like, oh man, these great little machines that are wood upholstered and can play samba and rumba.
And they have a good time there.
It's really cute, yeah.
And then we cut back to Bernice.
It basically sounds like Rugrats music, actually. That's what I had written down.
There's no orchestra on this show. But we cut back to Honey and Bernice in silence, and they both, clear their throats and immediately chug alcohol.
Yeah. That all 4 characters are now emptying bottles of alcohol in front of each other, 2 because they are awkward and 2 because they're having a great time. And you can even see like they're drinking wine upstairs, and it's vodka for King Chicken, and I think rum or whiskey for Duckman.
It's a nice cut because like Bernice and Honey like raise the bottles, and it cuts to a shot of Duckman and King Chicken slamming down the bottles.
That's really good. Yeah.
So let's hear some good drunk acting and belching from King Chicken and Duckman.
I gotta at least think the belching isn't Jason and Tim.
I think they're stunt belchers.
Yes. Yeah.
You want to know a secret? Sometimes I wish I was an evil genius just like you. Because let me tell you, you are the best in the biz, mister.
It means a lot to hear you drunkenly slur that, because I never wanted Judge to murder you. I wanted your respect. You're the one. You're Dickman, Private Duck.
You said a mouthful.
King Chicken. Duck.
I mean, I don't know what's wrong with me, but belch talking, just superb comedy in my opinion. Write the funniest joke you can. It's not funnier than someone belching a word.
It's a real skill to belch those things. That's oh god, it's so gross. But also, I love Tim Curry makes respect last so long. It's great. And then he's still doing the obscene over enunciation while also perfectly drunk acting in that character. And I also like that briefly Duckman, for his homophobia earlier in it, Duckman doesn't seem against doing something sexual with King Chicken.
Oh yeah, I love that line where they're embracing each other and King Chicken's like, you know what this means? And Duckman looks up, he's like, not that.
Yeah, he's like, not that.
It means they're friends.
But Duckman's look isn't that he's like disgusted by it.
He's just like,
well,
yeah.
Is this where this is going? I'm pretty drunk.
You see him just kind of tucked under King Chicken's breasts, his chicken breast, because he's so much bigger than Duckman.
Yeah.
But yeah, they both belch loudly. That's the act break, and they start laughing again.
Really great. Just this loud belch taking you into the commercial.
The Body USA Network. And then Act 3 starts with charades, and it's a bit of a too long joke where Duckman does not get the War and Peace act out that King Chicken is trying to do.
And the Duckman's 3 guesses, he then just slightly changes each of those 3 guesses when he's doing it. And that's though I think scenes like this and all the other parodies of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf I saw as a kid, they did make me fear grown-up dinner parties. They're just like, oh no, these are dark nights of the soul, these grown-up dinner parties.
These games where the truth comes out.
Yeah.
It's a door!
Though now I've gone to those grown-up dinner parties, and yes, there is tension, but I feel like they've been heightened at mine because people want to play the lie to each other game.
You can take that and shove it, buddy. We'll play some kind of video game instead, like Quiplash or something.
That's fun. You're making up jokes to each other, or honestly, charades is good enough. Or I did play a good one though of it was personal Pictionary, where everybody has a drawing pad and you get a phrase and you try to draw what it is. Then you pass it over. The next person guesses what you drew, and then the next person just sees the written down guess and they try to draw that. And so it's like Pictionary telephone.
Yeah, I mean, Rock Band is dead, charades is over, Jackbox is where it's at. Just Jackbox all the way.
That's it, and it's. My parents love it too. I've played it with my mom and stepdad. They love it. If I could be in the same room with them right now, I'd probably be playing it.
So, after this charades bit, I love Bernice's little line here. She's like, oh, that was provincial fun. Plus, the built-in tension has sobered everybody up.
Yes.
So it's a fun plot sheet because nothing makes me matter. I'm furious about it, by the way, seriously angry. But I don't like when in fiction, it's just like the character is super drunk then suddenly not drunk. It happens too much, and it's just like, here's a plot excuse why everyone is not smashed currently.
Because they were all insanely drunk at the very last moment, and so they need to explain why, for plot purposes, characters other than Honey need to be sober. And it's funny, they give that line to her as opposed to the other 3, because then she can fall down in extreme drunkenness or mind drunkenness.
Yeah, she breaks the coffee table and she's like, George thinks I have a drinking problem and I do. I'm not plastered yet.
No.
And then Duckman, even Duckman is alienated by this level of debauchery. He's backing away from her as she's laughing.
They're all so uncomfortable about it. It's great.
Oh, and I love this part, this animation. We didn't talk about the animation. It's good. I like what they do with these characters. And I like this animation of her getting up and walking across the room. She almost trips and catches herself and then does a little trot towards the game table, or the cabinet that has all the games in it.
Yeah, it's really, really great posing and act out there, yeah.
And she's got an idea, scruples, and Duckman doesn't know what that word means because obviously he has none. But let's hear all about how to play scruples.
You answer questions and everyone votes on whether you're telling the truth. I'll show you. You're attracted to someone who's married. Do you act on that attraction or not? You say, of course not. We all believe you and we move on. You have a chance to cheat on your wife of 17 years. Do you resist or do you reward everything she's given you by betraying her with a relative of a sworn enemy? Getting the idea? Oh, my heavens, this won't do. Duckman, help me walk.
She's only guessing. She can feel the electricity. Oh, Kingy, all I want is for you to get a divorce, give up your lifelong dreams, settle down in a godforsaken sinkhole, and work long hours at a poorly paid service industry job while I get old and fat caring for my dead sister's 3 children. Is that too much to ask?
Bernice, the lure of that lifestyle is strong indeed. Say, I've got an idea. While I work on the divorce, we can have sex on the sly while I keep having sex with Honey and never acknowledge you in public.
So that is King Chicken's plan, which is completely self-serving and not in line with Bernice's, pro-feminist ways.
Yeah, though I guess, Bernice's plan, as she pitches it, is also very selfish of like, could you drop the entire life you've lived to live in my much worse life and take a horrible job to help me raise kids as I am approaching 40? just give up like that. King Chicken, I can understand why he'd want to just string her along continually. It's also very sweet how Duckman like helps her walk out of the room too.
Yeah. And he feels bad for her.
Well, this whole thing about playing a game that reveals secrets, like that is straight out of the Virginia Woolf play as well, like that, though it's played slightly differently. But I love her speech of just like Bernice finally gets that, like, no, Honey understands. Like she's finally twisting the knife one more time here.
Yeah, I love that. I love how drunk she's playing it. And I love how she's like, well, here's a question I was asked, and here's how you'd answer it. Because, of course, you would never do that, right?
You'd never do that to your loving wife who's sacrificed everything for you. Love that.
So, yeah, Duckman is in the kitchen looking for champagne, and Honey finds it, and it's between her breasts.
Oh, my. What a... Yeah, they get a lot out of cork-popping innuendo here as well. But I'm shocked that even with it being, phallic imagery, that they still got away with like where they placed that on her body on 90s television.
That's right between the old breast there, and then she like just smashes her chest into Duckman, saying, now don't pop your cork too prematurely.
Yes, which when the cork does pop prematurely later in the sequence, I feel like that is meant that Duckman could not hold it in their makeout
think so.
session.
It's a messy makeout, but Duckman weighs the pros and cons of this, saying, it's going to crush my new friendship with King Chicken, and then Honey reveals like the corset she has on under her dress. She takes off her dress,
which he will remain in that the rest of the episode. And it's a sexy number she's wearing, but also you can tell that she's not young anymore. There's some little wrinkles, especially like where her like armpit is. She feels like a person of actual like weight and skin instead of just a full-on just fantasy of the Mrs. Robinson type.
And that's when the cork pops as soon as Duckman gives in. And then that is when Bernice and King Chicken wander in to see them in the act.
I love when they walk in because in the hallway you can see like an eye. It's like a clock that looks like an eye.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that.
So it feels like them watching them. It's really good.
Let's hear them get caught.
What's going on here? This is how you carry on a friendship?
Of course not. I barely even like her. Oh, you meant with you. Look, I wouldn't have gone through with it another 20, 30 minutes. I would have put my foot down.
Nothing's changed, has it, Dorkman? You'd do anything to humiliate me. Anything it takes to destroy my life, even if it means getting my wife to violate the sacred bonds of matrimony.
Quit crowing, Mr. Cock-a-diddle-too. You've been violating our sacred bonds for who knows how many years.
I like Mr. Cock-a-diddle-too.
That's a great insult.
Yeah.
Quit crowing, Mr. Cock-a-diddle-too. God, so good. Yeah. And when you see this makeout here, they must have really felt something because she will marry him. Like she wants to marry Duckman.
I mean, we find out very soon that she was just using Duckman to just break up this entire night. She's just like, I want the status quo back. This is where I rule.
She's like, I'm tired of this party. Time to take it to its logical conclusion where if Bernice is with King Chicken, I need to be with you. I wonder if in the finale they were just going through before writing it, like, okay, who marries Duckman? Of all the women we've had him with in this, is it possible for any of them to get with him? But
We
I
do
guess
find out that she's cleaned herself up in that episode.
Yeah, she cleaned herself up, and they also, they seem to be trapped in her big speeches about how they will never get divorced, but clearly both got mature enough by these finale that they actually will decide to get divorced.
And this is when Honey and Bernice get into it with their back and forth insults. I love all of these. We get Susie Homewrecker. That's what she calls Bernice. Bernice says, dip yourself in flour and make a skank biscuit.
Yeah.
And right before Bernice can call her Betty Croco shit, the SH and shit blends into the shut up from King Chicken.
So good.
Yeah.
So they really got away with it. And also cellulite encrusted tart.
Yeah. I love the almost swearing they do on Duckman. There's one great scene where they replace the word fogging for fucking.
Oh my
and
God.
Bernice goes on
yeah.
saying fogging for a lot of things for about a minute.
Yeah, it's like you get your fogging parking space straight for a fogging minute. And yeah, that I was half watching it in the background as I was like making dinner and hearing that line. I was like, what? Wait, what? Like, yeah.
Is USA even on at night, as Bernice would say? So then this is when like the list of, like, they could just print a book of Duckman insults, like back and forth insults that characters give each other, because we get this from King Chicken and Duckman. Like, Duckman is a teeth-sucking bore. King Chicken is a rug-wearing suburban psycho. Then we finally get Hostess Humper, which is the direct line from Let's Play Hump the Hostess from Virginia Woolf.
Wow. I admit, that's really great. That's really great.
And Duckman crosses the line when he calls him George Herbert Walker. And then we get, my name is King.
It's so great. He's supposed to. That's why Honey said his name
Yeah.
right up front in the episode, because that was her. She knew that would drive him crazy, revealing that to Duckman.
Giving Duckman that ammo. And that's
Yeah.
when King Chicken decides to turn evil.
That's it. It's over. I'm once again dedicating my life to taking over the world and destroying you in the process.
And I mine. To you.
Egad, you can't even banter properly.
We're on opposite sides of what's right, chicken. It's clear to me now we could never be friends.
For the last time in our lives, we agree. This friendship is deceased.
Good. I'm not a big fan of change.
And we get her big speech next that I have, so don't worry.
Okay,
it's
yeah.
one of the best parts of this episode, and like so mature for a show called Duckman.
Yeah, King's turn there, just that one you expected, because as a viewer they have to reset the status quo. They have to become enemies again, so that way you get another fun King Chicken adventure in a few episodes. Like that. You're always waiting for the next King Chicken one, but while that is expected, giving Honey like the final word in this episode, like that is very unexpected.
Yeah, and I think like my fan theory is like Honey somehow introduced her daughter to Ajax, knowing it would bring Duckman and Bernice into the home. Then she could finally meet Bernice and destroy her, and also give King Chicken like a moment of satisfaction in that he can overcome his enemy and become friends with him, and then just take it away immediately,
Steal it, like to make it even more crushing for him. Yeah,
because we never see Tammy, and that's my theory. Like that's the long game she was playing here, and it all pays off tonight.
I think that's really right. That makes her a better arch nemesis than King Chicken 2. She's better at plots, and also you get the implication from her that for her, King Chicken's arch enemy stuff is basically like him having a bowling league or some other thing that gets him out of the house so she can have time to herself,
So here is Honey's speech.
You see, I realized some time ago that I wasn't going to have a life I could be proud of. So I promised myself a life I could hang on to. King's happiest when he's hating Duckman. He's downstairs, he's working, everything's in its place. I like that. When you have very little, you hold tight to the things that are there. Which is why I also made sure he signed a prenuptial agreement promising me everything if he leaves. Can you imagine the things I had to do to get him to sign that? The point being, he's not going anywhere. My kingy's life is his work and me. Other people are too big a risk for us, and I do what I have to keep them out. So, now that we all understand each other, I think we'll assume that, except in the course of their careers as bitter arch enemies, none of us will ever see each other again. Agreed?
And that's no character responds. I just like how she just takes control and no one can even like argue against her. She's like, no, this is what's happening and you're going to leave now.
They're just broken and defeated.
Yeah.
Every one other character speaks after this, but not Bernice, King Chicken, and Duckman. And so they're just like broken by this. They've got nothing else to say. And I love how Honey turns back on her fake voice. It's just like, so
it's a great monologue by Judith Light. It's so good. It's like when you have very little, you hold tight to the things you can keep. You know, it's such a great. You really get a lot out of her character. It's too bad she only came back once.
And also the disdain she says, like, other people, like that's great. And the implication, like, man, what freaky stuff was King Chicken into for that? I got to think at least 3 ways were involved in getting that agreement.
Something's going on with King Chicken. But yeah,
and the look on his face of how defeated he is, like Bernice is looking at him like, please say that's not true, and then he's like because that prenup is, he can never get out. Like, he knows the prenup will leave him broke. She probably has all the money. I mean, the way it comes off, it's not said, but I would assume like she's an heiress and he actually doesn't have real money.
They do divorce later in the series off screen when she comes back, but I love how it ends because like there's no dialogue shared, just like another moment of silence in this loud fast show where they're just kind of looking at each other from far from like the driveway to the house, and then they just like share a glance, and then like Honey just kind of leads King Chicken back to the house with like her hand on his back, like, no, see, I'm in charge now, you go home now. And then they have to go home, and the final words of the episode were AJ's going, I really like Tommy. And then like no one is responding to him at all.
It's him realizing that he'll never see her again, and
after that he just like turns around and looks out the window as the house gets further and further away.
Just a great silence as they drive away from the place, as you see the executive producer credit over it. Like, there's some really great parting shots in Duckman. This is one of the best of just you realize after all of this stuff you've seen between the parents, you realize that, you know, Ajax is this poor bystander stuck in it, and he's the one truly destroyed by all of this.
And we will never see Tammy again. But yeah, a great episode. I don't think it's a typical Duckman. It's just as well written and smart. But I like how it goes for, you know, huge, ambitious, like globetrotting or genre-changing adventures, but also very small, like one-act dramas or whatever. Sorry, 3-act dramas, like you could just see on a stage.
Mm-hmm. It gave the actors a lot to deal with. It challenged the writers of like, you can't just make up anything and expect the animators to draw it. You need to have dialogue that supports these things and have it all work in text. And they have such a great voice cast, including 2 guests in this one that are able to back it up. It's great. Obviously I miss Cornfed not being in this episode, but still, it's so funny and so great. And to get a King Chicken one, like King Chicken is the best guest they ever had on the show.
And it's great he can just be himself for the entire episode, which rarely happens.
Yeah. God. Maybe Tim Curry was regretting some of the big choices he made for the character. He's like, oh, I got to do this the whole episode now.
It's a lot, but I do love it. But yeah, I guess to wrap up, Duckman is great, and Duckman is something that you should buy on DVD, and then tweet at Jason Alexander. You have the power. You have to have at least $1 million.
You can sponsor at least one new episode, or just do a Kickstarter for like 6.
Do like a Netflix movie like Rocko's Modern Life, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you know, listeners, if you liked this Duckman talk, the next time the miniseries poll comes around, keep this in mind. We could do more Duckman talk in the future. Who knows? But it's up to you to vote for it.
Yes, and every time you don't vote for Duckman or duck for Vote Man, I take it personally, but I will still gladly, you know, do whatever miniseries you guys vote for. But come on, just one season of Duckman, please. I'm begging you.
That's all we need.
Yes. But thank you so much for listening to What a Cartoon. If you want to support us and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons, and when you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes the 3 years worth of paywall content we've been making since we started the Patreon, and that is all of our limited miniseries, but most importantly, the newest one is Talking Mission Hill. It's us doing the entire Mission Hill series, the whole first season and only season, using this What a Cartoon and Talking Simpsons treatment, and it's only exclusively on the Patreon, including all of our other miniseries and over 100 bonus podcasts, hours and hours and hours and hours of content for you to listen to at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons at the $5 level. And Henry can tell everybody out there what is happening at the $10 level. One mega long podcast once a month that is only for $10 and up patrons.
That's right. If you want all of those $5 bonuses and an extra bonus on top of that for $10 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, you get to hear the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. Me and Bob cover a different animated feature film once a month, all picked by our patrons. Last month, we did Toy Story 2 from the writers of this episode.
That's true.
And this coming month, you will get up to Slam and Jam, as we're going to be doing Space Jam, the amazing Michael Jordan commercial and okay film at best. But you're going to have a lot of fun listening to that. Over 4 hours long are most of our What a Cartoon Movie podcasts, so you need to check those out. $10 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
So I have been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast. Find it wherever you find podcasts, or just simply go to patreon.com/Retronauts and sign up there to get 2 exclusive episodes every month that are only for patrons. And Henry, how about you?
Follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. Anytime new stuff happens, I tweet about it there. And you'd also be able to keep up with all of our updates on the Talking Simpsons Network if you follow the official Twitter account at Talk Simpsons Pod. You'll learn first when new What a Cartoon podcasts go up, or Talking Simpsons podcasts, or any updates on our Patreon at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next week for the Harley Quinn episode, Till Death Do Us Part, and we will see you then.
Lactose intolerant. Ben Vereen. Guppies in a trash compactor. Lactose tolerant. Ben Johnson. Guppies in a great big trash compactor.
Time!
What an amusing series of errors. No, compadre. It was War and Peace.
Aha. What's War and Peace?
It's a book.
Aha. What's a book? Only kidding. I used one to prop up a window just last week.
The first taste of rare bourbon you finally got your hands on. That's nice. At Caskers.com, we make this experience easy. Caskers is a one-stop spirit curator with an impressive selection of exclusive, sought-after, rare, and household names in the realm of premium spirits and champagne. Discover the top flavors of the year now by going to Caskers.com and using code WELCOME10 for $10 off your first purchase. Get $10 off your first purchase with code WELCOME10 at Caskers.com.